Oh,
Yo, yo.
hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Occult Exploration Society Live. I'm Snappy. Thank you for joining me, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Dion. How's it going, Dion?
Celebrating life, we're breathing.
Amazing. And we have our special guest and our dear friend Neil of Gnostic Informant. How's it going, Neil?
It's going. We're, as Dion says, it's another day above the ground, so there's work to do.
Amazing. Life is beautiful. So our friend Ryan Seven is going to be joining shortly. He was just slept in a bit, but he will hop on and then we'll get him up to speed. But we are all gathered here today for part 5 of our deep dive into the Dragon's Tongue. For those of you who are just tuning in, make sure you go back and check out some of those episodes. But we've been looking at all of this dragon communication, dragon magic, dragon ritual, all associated with these rites, with these drugs, with transformative acts. And we've been looking at this mythology as it moves across the Mediterranean. And today we are expanding that. We are going a bit east. Dion, do you want to catch up our audience? What do you got to say about the Dragon's Tongue? And what do you have for your presentation today?
Well, the dragon temple guardians, kings, emperors, shamans, queens, people from the past, figures that transform through their words and actions. And the word being the dragon's tongue, the logos, and also serpentine magic, serpents, and how that relates to dragons in ancient culture. And we are going east, but before we go to the eastern gate, we're going to start at the western gate in Celtic Britain. And we're going to work our way all the way up to the east, to the eastern dragons. And I know that my fellow brothers got some excellent stuff to present later.
I got some Taoist texts. They're known as the purple texts. They're actually drug manuals that were traded on the Silk Road by Greco-Bactrians living all the way where Alexander reached. And to China, the Silk Road was over there. So there was trading between Greeks and Chinese all the way back.
Oh,
they call it the purple text.
The gymnophysists or gymnosophists.
Yeah.
Greco-Bactrian, that's the Silk Road. And that's what we're going to look at today, how that connects in ancient time, basically the Silk Road.
Yeah, and they literally call it the purple text. Isn't that crazy?
Beautiful.
All the purple logos out there.
Yeah. I'm going to be talking a bit about the Vedas. And we're going to be specifically looking at some of the hymns that are involving Indra and the serpent Vitra, who's a demon with a twin named Vala. We're going to be getting into that. Lots of fun there and looking at some of the related symbolism. But that is a fun one. It relates even, Neil, I watched a bit of your episode you did yesterday with Old Boy and Taliesin's map, and you guys were going deep into it. And at one point you were talking about Soma, right? And the connection of Soma and Dionysus in the Veda. And that's a great one. And it was lots of fun. So I want to recommend all of our audience after this, go and check out that conversation if you're interested in any of these deep connections. They go deep into the Celtic myths, into the Vedic a bit. They go into the Pelasgian quite deep with Old Boy. It's lots of fun. But Dion, take us away. Get us started with your presentation here.
And I would like to say, I did look up Jay Dolan's books. You got to check out those books. His book is that thick.
It's
huge. He ain't playing around. I was like, I don't know much about this guy. I looked him up on Amazon. I'm like, okay.
And it's all stuff that we talk about. It's all comparing Eastern gods to Western gods, Indo-European, all this stuff.
And Old Boy as well, knocking it out the park.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm pretty sure y'all's going to have that Greek tongue down pretty soon. Another year or two?
Yeah.
I'm
getting better myself too.
With that gray beard like Zeus right there.
Yeah, it's getting gray down here now.
That's right. There you go. Well, why does the Welsh flag have a red dragon? That's the question we start with. And in mythology, they talk about that red dragon fighting a white dragon. The word, I guess, is Drag, D-D-R-A-I-G. A Celtic word. And this relates back to Arthurian mysteries, like King Arthur. Remember Arthur PenDragon, Uther PenDragon, and PenDragon meaning the lead dragon. So we have the mythology on the Celtic islands there. And, other people interpret it different ways. We could look at the red and white dragon as being sexual energies, like the semen and the blood. Some people interpret it politically. That's Celtic Britain versus the Saxons, and that the red dragon is the Celtics and the Saxons are the white dragon. I came across that looking into it. But there's other interesting things to deal with, because we talked about Tristan, killing dragons to get the dragon's tongue. In one episode, St. Patrick killing snakes, even St. George. But in some mythologies, Lancelot kills dragons. And Lancelot is connected to Scythia or Sarmatia. He's a Sarmatian knight. Now, there's one version of that. Go to the next pic.
Before you hop off, I just want to say something for Ryan 7, because he was harping on, remember from his video, or his presentation, excuse me, about this particular shape of the dragon tongue and how it related specifically to a form of mushroom that grows in the UK. And that it was always about, your stab, and the lance is also kind of shaped like a mushroom. So sometimes you're feeding in a mushroom, or you're stabbing to get the mushroom, which is that tongue, and so there's this kind of allegorical mushroom element at play too with these dragons.
Yeah, put that in your subconscious then. For this episode, the dragon and the mushroom. We'll see some interplay as we work our way down the Silk Road. So, there's an alternative myth of King Arthur. Artorius, of the bear. You might have even seen that movie with Clive Owen, where he plays the form of Artorius, which is a Roman general or sentinel that goes to Britain, and he fights the Saxons, and he's half British, he's half Roman. Did you see anybody seen that movie?
No. Yes, I did actually. Yeah.
The Clive Owen movie, and people say it's loosely based off the King Arthur myth.
Right.
And some people, there's books out that say that King Arthur's based off of him, off this Roman myth or this Roman centurion.
I've heard that too.
So whether it's true or not, and see, I was hoping Ryan was here, but when he gets here, Ryan will know a lot about this stuff. I'm going to use the travels, let's say, of the centurion. His name is Lucius Artorius Castor, or Castus. And he was a real centurion or general that was in the Roman army. And this is all around, let's say, from 100 AD to 200 AD, first to second century. And there's a lot of weird overlapping mysteries. Now, his travels around the Roman lands at that time, what we call Rome, goes to a lot of amazing places. And there's a lot of weird stuff that's incorporated with dragons and different stuff. So I'll use him as the backdrop, his travels of Artorius, where they get this alternative myth of King Arthur, PenDragon. So let's go to the next pic. So that's the European map right there of Rome at the time when they, when they expanded. What's 117 right there?
That's the met their height during the reign of Hadrian.
Exactly.
End of Trajan, yeah. Trajan.
And right around this time or before this time, there's another myth of the Ninth Legion. I don't know if you ever heard of the Ninth Legion. They go missing, supposedly. Yeah. Or maybe they end up in Norway or in Armenia somewhere. And so there is this mythology with Celtic and Roman stuff. Because some people say they go missing when they go to Celtic Britain, the Ninth Legion. So we're going to get more into this. All right, so go to the next pic. All right, so here you see he has a breastplate. And this is Augustus right here. And now go to the next pic. And here's a close-up of his breastplate.
Oh, yeah, this is awesome.
Now you can see that right there. That's a Celtic priest on his breastplate.
A druid.
Yeah, a druid. And what he's holding is a dragon horn. It's a dragon horn.
Yeah, that's very much a giveaway. That is a druid.
And they would blow into this thing when they go into battle.
Isn't that what it's called? The Carnax, or what is it?
Exactly, the Carnax.
But it's like their signature staff is that, like, the Romans have the augur staff, the spiral, and the Greeks have the double serpent. But every priest has to have their signature staff. Dionysus, the Maenads and the Bacchans have the thyrsus.
Exactly. And so some people call this the signifier in the Roman army, the person that carries the staff.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna look at the staff that we're talking about as a metaphor for the episode and the dragon. We're talking about mounting the dragon's head on a staff now to go into battle. And this is going to deal with Mars and Aries. And so, around this time, let's say 200 AD, they got in a battle, Rome with Romania. And they were called the Daci or Dacians at that time. And they had what's called the Draco staff. Go to the next image. That's it right there. And so the Romanian army at that time would go into battle with the Draco Standard. And what it was a pole with the giant bronze dragon's head on it that had metallic pipes in the mouth. So when it went through the wind, it would whistle and make a howling sound. And the rest of the body would wave in the air. It was made out of fabric. And they would have these horns, the carnaxes, but they had wolf heads. Because in a lot of the myths, the dragon replaces the wolf. The wolf it was a wolf's head mounted on the pole, then it became a dragon's head in some of the myths. And it would make a sound. So after they battled the Romans adopted that, and that became the Draco Standard of the Roman army. So let's go to the next pic. And right there, you can see that's a coin right there. And you can see on the right, he's holding that dragon staff in the hand. And there was a signifier in the Roman army that would hold that. Because you talked about they would hold the double eagle and go into battle. That was famous for that. We'll go to the next image. All right. So these are the Roman staffs right there. Now, everyone knows about the double eagle. But they had other ones. The one on the far right is the staff with the hand on it. You see that symbol with the hand on it? And the other one is a spear. Wow. And these are some of their older symbols. They would go into battle with the hand. But it was the full hand was open. It wasn't throwing up any symbols like that. It full hand open going into battle. And it was called the manus for mono. And here you can see the Draco Standard, which was adopted by the Roman army after they beat the Romanian army. And it's funny that it's called Romania and Rome because they took a lot from them. It's kind of special. So go to the next image. All right, so here's the word on top. Draconarius. That was the name of the person that carried the dragon staff in the Roman army.
Wow.
And in some terms, it means little dragon. Or to carry the, in the term at the bottom, the draconifer or draconifer also means to bear a dragon. And so this Draconarius would carry that into battle, the dragon's head. Well, eventually it got replaced by Constantine. Remember, he replaced it and he put the XP on everything, the Cairo. But there's more to the story. So all right, here's what it is. It's 10 legions make a cohort. You've heard of a cohort and a legion in the Roman army. Okay. So the cohorts, they use the eagle standard. The legions, they use the Draco standard. So for a certain time period, in the second to the fourth AD, they were carrying around dragons, the Roman army, on the top of their staffs. And the thing about it, there's a little more to it. Now, they had trumpets as well. I was talking about the dragon trumpets. Oh, hang on one second right here. Hang on one second. My roommate's here.
All right.
Oh, wow. Dragon trumpets. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I know that when you put
Eus
Eus at the end of anyone's name, like if you go back to where it says Draconarius, that Eus at the end of a name can signify son of, because Heus means son. So it can mean son of the dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that gets us to Dracula.
Or Dragonborn. Dragonborn could be that too.
Now,
interesting.
So when Constantine replaced it with the Liberium, the XP or the Cairo, they still called the person that carried the Cairo into battle for Constantine around 325 around that time period, the Draconarius. It was still called that name up into the 10th century. They used this term. But by then they had converted to Christianity. So who are they calling the Draconarius? Go to the next image. So you can see right there, this is a coin from Constantine when he threw up the Cairo as his battle shield. Because I guess Helena had a vision and told him, if you put this on the shield, you'll win the battle. But if you see at the bottom of the coin, the Cairo is on a snake. And it's going back to the Draco Standard, or it's killing the snake. There's a lot. That's when it got replaced. But in this coin, it still has the snake as part of it before Constantine threw up the Cairo. So go to the next image. So right here. So up until the 10th century, the little boy that would carry the cross at the Easter procession was called the Draconarius. Up to the 10th century, that's the guy in front holding the cross, which would be a little virgin boy, and carrying that into the church would be called the Draconarius, the dragon bearer, the little dragon. And go to the next image. So go back real quick and I'll show you. So you see those red and white that they're wearing, those outfits? That's based off something called the panna cotta. If you go to the next image. We had that in our episode before, which is, it's a dish. It's a dessert from pano, because the cream covers milk like a cloth, and from the Latin patina, because the cream forms a patina on the surface of the milk, and cotta, a short garment resembling a surplice worn by Catholic priests. So that outfit they're wearing in the dish go hand in hand, and in some stories, that's a psychoactive panna cotta. You know, that red and white, like that red and white dragon we were talking about at the first picture. But go to the next image. All right. So even before I talk about that, you know, I did want to mention one thing. And these are, and it deals, remember we were talking about before Cadamus killing the dragon? And he planted the dragon seeds, or teeth, and they became the Spartans, the Spartoi. And he planted it in the field of Ares. Mm-hmm. And so I want to connect this to Mars and Ares, because we're talking about dragons going into war. So we got to talk about Ares and Mars, you know, because that's what they're holding the standard up for. It's Mars to go into war, to attack things. Because last week, Neil, you talked about the Sali. Remember the Sali? Mm-hmm. They have something called the Salian virgins as well, which was the female Salis that go along with the male Salis. Yeah. And part of it is a throwback to the Corybantes, the Curetes and the Corybantes that protected Dionysus, I think, or Zeus, or protected Zeus when he was a kid. Yep. Which
and the same story applies to Attis in the Phrygian mysteries.
And so what these are is a class of military priests. Because we're talking military stuff today, but it's still priest stuff and military stuff. And the people that hold these standards are a form of priests. And so the Sali would do dances and sacrifices before they would go into battle. And so, but the part of the Salian virgins, I was looking it up, and these are young females that they would dress up as men. Because last week we talked about, I talked about the ritual, the Dionysian ritual, where they dressed up the two young boys as females. Well, in this one, the female Sali are dressed up as boys, and they put on the Salian hat, and they give them little knives, and they train them. I just wanted to bring that up because it's a form of military priest and priesthood and priestesshood that deals with this stuff. So I'll get back to this picture right here. I just want to throw that out there just for a future episode. So right there, you'll see on the right, he has a standard with the cross. But to the left, somebody's holding this giant candle with the snake wrapped around it. And that's called the Draconafer that's holding that. The bearer of the Dracon. And it's called the Praesero Serpenta. It's a triple candle. I don't know if you can see that. At the top of that candle, there's three. And it has a serpent going around it. And they would light that. Yeah. Wow. And so those are the two terms I was talking about. The person on the right would be called the Draconarius, and the person on the left would be called the Draconafer. And they're carrying.
Remember what Clement of Alexandria said when he said that Sabazius is the countersign to the mysteries. Mm-hmm. That's them holding up that symbol.
Exactly. And everyone's looking over there. They're not looking at the cross.
Right.
If you notice. And so go to the next image.
It's also important, guys. This is the same image we were seeing, the Chenubis image that we were seeing on all of those phylacteries right? The Abraxas image of the Gnostics. They're all interrelated, right? Serapis, right? All of this guy, head on a snake or lion on a snake, all interrelated.
Yeah.
So there's an actual real one right there at a church somewhere.
Wild.
And it has a snake with the head on it, and it would have 3 candles at the top. And this goes back to this serpent dragon magic that we're talking about, and how now it was used in military and then crosses over into the church. And goes back to this serpent dragon magic that we're talking about. There's Ryan.
Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
What up, peeps?
Going on.
Sorry I'm a bit late. I decided to have an early evening nap to see if I couldn't get some brain power back. But it didn't work out very well, and now my eyes are puffy. Please, just ignore me.
All good.
We're just glad you're here. Did you catch any of Dion's presentation?
Yeah, I missed about 5 minutes in the middle when I had a shower, but yeah, great stuff so far.
Oh, good, my friend. Well, right here we're talking about snakes on poles, snakes on staffs. And obviously, I heard somebody say, yeah, Moses and the brazen serpent. So let's go to the next image. Right there, from the Bible. We hear that Moses puts a snake on a staff because everyone's getting bit by snakes because they don't believe in Yahweh. And they say, put that up on that staff and it'll cure you. Now, in this image, I don't know if you can see, Moses has his little horns, little rays of light. That's why I use this one image, because it has both. And if you notice, the dragon or the serpent on the staff has wings. Now, this is a medieval interpretation, or let's say a European interpretation, but it's funny. Now, go to the next image. Now, right here, this is from a Bible. It says that Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on the standard. And it came about that if a serpent bit any man, when he looked to the bronze serpent, he lived. Now, it says to put it on a standard, and the word is Simeon, which means a sign. It's a Greek word. So it's funny that he's putting it on a standard. When you put a snake on a standard, that's like the Roman Draco when you're going into war. And that's what I was showing you earlier. Right. There it is. Yeah, Simeon right there. And I looked up the word. It says a symbol in ancient art associated with the gods, resembling a Roman military standard. When you throw that snake or the dragon's head up on a staff. And you know who did that too was Vlad Dracul, Vlad the Dragon. What did he like to do? Put heads on staffs?
Yeah.
It's saying it's a thing.
The family that originates the tarot, the Visconti family from northern Italy, they too have a dragon on a staff, or often a dragon consuming, much like you see in Mazatec, Aztec, the Incan places, you know, where you get this shamanic motif of being swallowed by that venomous serpent. Wow. I will say as well, sorry, I noticed when Moses had the brazen bronze serpent, there was a right-hand path analogy there going on, because that was made out of copper and tin. So that's Jupiter and Venus. And they were using these analogies back then, as far as I can tell. So, yeah, it sounds, that's the right-hand path on the tree of life. That's what that is.
Snakes and trees. So a dragon on top of a staff going into war for Ares or Mars, it does relate to snakes and trees. It goes back to the tree of life or the Garden of Eden. There's a lot of interplay and connection between the dragon and the lion. How it got to move on something. It's like Hermes.
Yeah. A moment ago, you were mentioning the fact that they took the dragon on the staff and exchanged it for the Kai Ro, or the Tau Ro. Well, because that dragon up the staff is a signifier of time and fate. This is the serpent knowledge, the polarity. Time is polarity, and as it polarizes more and more, we move into fate. So that's the dragon. It's Jupiter, fate, Zeus. So the Kai Ro is the same thing. That's the sun moving around. That's fate. That's time. And the Kai and the Ro are talking about those two pillars again in the sky. That's the Kai, or the Tau. And that's the procession and the counts of time, just like Aeon is. Aeon's a staff. That god Aeon, Phanes, he's a staff with a snake going up it, and all around him is time, from the 4 seasons around the edge to the zodiac, to the lion of the moment on his chest, and he's made up of that lion, bull, eagle, and man, which you could relate back to procession again. You'd be interested in that stuff, Neil.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Even simpler, in the mythopoetics, we see this imagery everywhere. X marks the spot where you find the treasure. That's how you draw down the star. Who is the star but Christ, the sun? The P intersecting the X is an alchemical magical spell to call Christ down into victory with you, into battle. It's that war standard, as Dean was saying, right?
You know, and think of the Cairo, not two-dimensional. Like, we're looking at it flat. How would it look if it was three-dimensional? It's just because sometimes we can only draw things on a flat surface, but maybe they were representing something that's three-dimensional and has a shape that does other things. But good. All right, go to the next image.
I would right here say, you know, they're talking about time because it's got an alpha and an omega on it. That's totally time.
100. 100. Yeah, you'll see that in a lot of them. You have the XP, then the alpha and omega on each side. The symbol for it.
Well, again, that kind of says tarot, because that Greek R on the top, that Greek P is an R. You know, it says tarot as you look around it. Anyway, so sorry, Dion.
No, love it, love it. So right here we have a picture of Europe, an ancient map of Herodotus.
Yeah,
this is how Herodotus saw the world back then. And if you notice down there, Libya. The reason I'm going to put this because Herodotus has book 4. I think it's book 4. It's all about Libya and the adventures in Libya. I was going through it. I was like, wow, this shit goes deep. You know, like St. George killing the dragon. At a certain point, that myth happens in Libya. That's a Libyan dragon.
Yeah.
You know, we've heard of Hercules. Maybe his adventures took place down in Libya.
That's where Medea was born, Libya.
Yeah, Medea is born in Libya. We know Athena is born in Libya, he says.
The Libyan Sibyl, guys, right? The Libyan Sibyl, right? You still see her on the Vatican, right?
And then you have Homer saying that Mount Nisa is down in Libya/Egypt region.
But it's from that area.
Ethiopia, I think some people said. Yeah. There's a bunch of different things. Homer thinks it's down
area that it.
Homer thinks it's down
mate.
In Egypt. That's what Homer says.
That's true.
I was going to say that it's that same cult that that kind of spawns George and the dragon. They end up passing it on to the Templars, and then it ends up becoming the emblem of Britain through the Rosicrucians, through the likes of John Dee and Shakespeare and whatnot. Which is interesting. You know, it spans that far through time. It's still, you know, St. George is the patron saint of England.
Beautiful, man. Just as a little aside, I wanted to ask you this, Neil. Okay, do you think that Nisa is the mountain, or do you think it's a corruption of an earlier form of Nymphe?
That's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think it has to do with the nymphs. That's what a lot of people think. I don't know, because and then Pherecydes says both. He says it could be both. The mountain could be named after the nymphs to begin with.
Right.
So you can have a mountain named the mountain of the nymphs, and then now all of a sudden both of them are true. So I think that makes the most sense. And the location that Homer points to is basically where Mount Sinai is. Like he says it's southern. He goes, it's past Phoenicia, close to Egypt's Nile. Past Phoenicia. Like, why would you even say Phoenicia if you're going down to Egypt? So it makes you think it's near Egypt's Nile, but over towards Phoenicia, which will bring you into the Sinai region.
Mount Nisa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people say, is it Dio of Mount Nisa?
Right. The Dios is the god, or this little Zeus, the Zeus of Nisa. That's what it means.
And in this region, I think Mount Hermon.
I heard that was a folk etymology, isn't it? It's not an actual etymology, that is, isn't it? Sorry, just
these are all folk etymologies. But what it is when you look at that root, right? You do get this word Nymphe. It's the same root, right?
It is,
and you know, it's just clear that Dionysus, whether or not his name means that he's the god of the nymphs, he's clearly also the god of the nymphs. He's
right. That's what I'm saying. It makes the
most
sense.
The drinking, but he's also the god of the nymphs.
It makes the most sense that the mountain was named after the nymphs, and he was born on that mountain that's named after the nymphs. Because then now all of a sudden, all this stuff fits.
It puts it together. Yeah, it puts it together. You know, so with Libya, the reason I brought it up, not just all those other origins of some of the Greek gods or figures in Libya, but there's also a Roman story that took place, because we're talking about Roman centurions and SPQR and that stuff. Go to the next image. And there it is. All right. There was a Roman general named Regulus, and this is in 256 BC. And the meaning of the name is little king, Regulus, little king. He fought a dragon in Libya. And it's Livy that talks about this. Livy gets into this. And he says that the dragon's name is Bogrados. And he kills the dragon of Libya, Bogrados. And when he kills him, he sends the skin home to Rome. And they say it's 120 feet long, this snake skin.
Yeah, I heard that King David was represented by the star Regulus, which is the brightest star in like that area of the sky.
Isn't it in Leo? It's the lion Regulus.
Right next to Leo. Yeah, right next to Leo.
Yeah.
Or it might be in Leo.
There are 4 important stars on the ecliptic, the actual band of the ecliptic. So there's like one in Leo, which is that one in Scorpio. They call them the royal stars. They're from like Babylon. They're really important.
It's also one of the themes that we see with these draconic figures is that they're often either typhonic or titanic, or they're giants. You know, like Typhon is sometimes a dragon, sometimes a giant, depending on, sometimes it's both, right? Well, you see that in the Indian as well with the character of Vitra and Vala, the twins who are demons, Asura, who fight against Indra. Sometimes it's a giant snake, sometimes it's an actual giant person. It really depends on the context. So it's really interesting. There's all these connections there.
How old is this image, Dion? Do you know where it's from?
Oh, this is a European image. It's probably 1800s or something. You know, it's
kind of point to the shape of his tongue.
You know,
look at his tongue.
there's probably a strong connection between all of these figures. You know, Hercules, Gilgamesh, David. You know, now this Regulus guy, all slaying these monsters and becoming these new ascended kings. Right.
It's probably astrological, because I just looked it up. Regulus is actually outside of Leo. It looks like it's staring down Leo.
Yeah.
There you go. Right. It is.
Yeah.
It seems almost plain, right?
A lot of astrotheology you'll see. And besides mushrooms, we're talking about too. Like right here, so Regulus, meaning prince or little king. In the Roman context, a little king has to kill that dragon. Now there's another word, basilis. Can you go to the next image? Right there, basilis. That's a term that was used by Roman emperors in like the 6th and 7th century. They were using this term from basiliskos, little serpent, or little king, and serpent.
There's also you get the character in the Greek and the Latin of Basileia, right? Who is this mother of gods figure, and I believe it's an Ovid, but it's also connected to Despoina and Tirana. These you know, there's this feminine a ruler archetype that is seen as tyrannical, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Basil means king, essentially. That's why you got that link.
Yeah, so there is a connection between little kings and serpents and dragons. From PenDragon, head dragon, to Draco standards, to go to the next image. So we're going to take a side trip. So right there, that's a centurion. He has something on his head, and that's the bosculus we're talking about, because that means crested serpent in some of the terms. A crested serpent they talk about. And the centurion, if you go to the next image, that's ancient Egypt right there. I want to show you. So we were talking about the dragon standards of Rome, and they would mount a dragon on a staff and go to war. Well, in Egypt, they would mount the falcon or Horus, or this kind of Aegis lotus shield right there that you saw on the top of the centurion's head, which does look like a mushroom.
Oh, yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, and so right now I want to take a little detour real quick, talking about mushrooms and snakes in your hair, in your head. Because we know that ancient Egypt, they're going to put snakes on their head or dragons on their head to become pharaoh. We're talking about emperors and kings and pharaohs. So
Yeah,
go to the next
Uraeus,
image.
which
Yeah.
is also a goddess. Which is also a goddess.
So
Excuse
right
me.
here, this is called the Triple Crown. There's authors that are putting out books right now that talk about the Triple Crown being mushrooms. Those are little mushrooms sprouting on the Triple Crown. And you would think, well, that's crazy. Because
It's
we've
called
talked about it.
the Ottef crown, right?
Yep. And we've talked about in other episodes that people were putting weapons in their hair. You could have weaponized hair. The bow poisons, toxicon, the Amazons would dip the poisons or their bows in their hair, the arrows, before they went out into battle. We talked about growing mushrooms on dead bodies. That's Earl Lee has a book out about that. How you could put spores on a dead body. Well, I started doing research. Can you grow mushrooms in hair? Well, guess what? There's a bunch of new research studies out talking about, it's an ideal environment, deals with the keratin. You know, you'll see that in the shampoo thing. And maybe we can grow mushrooms in hair with the little sawdust and the spores. Go to the next image.
Dandruff, head and shoulders, that is literally a fungus on your head. You think it's your skin. It's not, it's a fungus growing on your skin.
Exactly. And so right there, those are mushrooms that are barely starting to fruit, starting to pop. That looks like that Triple Crown, those things on the Triple Crown. And guess what? These things can be grown in hair. And we know that people were putting things in their hair. Watch, go to the next image. So look at that right there. That's King Tut with the white crown. Doesn't that look like one of those little mushrooms right there?
Yeah.
The mushroom crown. Go to the next image. Boom. What is she holding on the left right there?
Oh, that's a clear example of mushrooms right there.
Oh, and they could grow mushrooms in little
And they
pots.
got it in a pot too. That's even crazier. What's on the right?
It's a wreath.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that is a laurel.
It's not updating on my screen.
Yeah.
For some reason.
You could grow it in their hair. And I'll tell you why. They're wearing wigs and they would do things to their hair, special things. Watch, go to the next image.
Good shit.
So right there.
Good shit, Dion.
And I'm going to show you just a couple examples real quick. So that's a Buddhist image with the 7 hooded cobra. And you see that mushroom growing on the head. Some people say, oh, it's an umbrella. Maybe you could say that. Go to the next image. Here's from a Hawaiian crown that they would wear. And it has mushrooms on it. Straight up mushrooms in the head. You know, all right, go to the next image. All right. So here's a sadhu from India. And we talked about Shiva's hair and Jakamukhata, where your hair becomes a crown. Well, you can grow things in the hair right here. Guess what? If this sadhu doesn't wash their hair or preserve it with oils or put things in it, it will grow fungus and bacteria. Things will grow in there. So when these ascetics meditate in a cave, if you want, they can inoculate their hair with spores and oils, and it will grow things in there. I even looked it up. They're doing studies on, you could grow, one thing is air plants. Air plants grow on hair besides the mushrooms because they like the keratic or keratin deals with that. All right, so go to the next image. All right, so here's some priests in Egypt and what's on their hair. They got these cones. These special cones, and the cones were made up of fats, resins, and psychoactive oils and plants. And you even see the one on the left has a lotus, a nymph on her hair, the nymphia, blue lotus.
Are those muffcuts cakes? Is that what they are?
Say that again?
Are they muffcuts cakes?
No,
those little ceremonial cakes. They're like little pyramid cakes.
Yeah, it's like that, except these melt. Those are baked. And you can eat those with psychoactives. These are psychoactives with oils that are cones, and they would melt on your hair in the sun. And now imagine their hair, some of it is real and braided and dread, and some is fake because they would wear these fake wigs. It's part of Egypt. They would shave their hair and wear fake wigs that you could actually grow things into. So they would get high off this. With the psychoactives, it would melt down into your skull and your head and boom, boom, boom. And you could inoculate your hair. You could do things. So go to the next image. All right, so right there you could see, here's one god. I think that's Hapi, the god of the Nile, growing lotus out of the head. And you see the other pictures are putting lotus on the head. And so in their minds, you could do things with the crowns and with your hair. There's more to the story. See, we don't see that in modern times, but in ancient times, There's a lot you could do. Like, look, in ancient times, they would take Sobek, the crocodile god, and take its dung, mix that with acacia, and women could put it in their vagina as a spermicidal.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they were taking the crocodile thing.
I've actually had the blue lotus. I took some dried stuff imported from Egypt and mixed it with white wine and left it to steep for about a week, and it was really nice. It makes you a bit naughty feeling, especially if there's a lady around. You know what I'm saying?
Naughty, love it.
Nice.
Well, that's what they called it. What, Nymphaea? That's the Latin name. So just saying. So let's go to the next image. All right. So there's Hatshepsut. You've heard of the pharaoh Hatshepsut, who's a female pharaoh, and she has that mushroom helmet, a fake beard, mind you. And they found in the burials the fake beards, and they talked about it. She wore a fake beard. Remember, the fake beards were made of sometimes the goat hair that had the mastic gums in it when the goat would chew on that incense. They called it the tears of Osiris, that special incense. Now I want to talk about something that's because this will lead us into the dragons of Scythia, the Scythian dragons, and how there they found a burial. Remember, they found a burial with the Scythian priestess or warrior, which is the woman with the fake beard. They found a Hatshepsut with the fake beard, the female warrior priestess, you know, here in Egypt. And so this will be a little bit of a theme for a second. So go to the next image. Right. Okay. So Florence Farr. She, at a certain point, was the head of the Golden Dawn. You might have heard of her. She took it over from Marshall or McGregor Mathers, and she got into it with them because she made her own Isis Urania Lodge. And here she is playing the psaltery. But one of the things about it that's interesting is that, go to the next image. There was a mummy that came to the Egyptian Museum in London at the turn of the century. She thought she could communicate with it. She thought she was having psychic communication with this mummy at the museum. And now this mummy has a couple things special about it. It's a female dancing mummy, but guess what? It's not a female, it's a man that's been mummified as a woman.
Wow.
Yeah. When they finally did the x-rays in the 1960s, they're like, hey, this is a man in there. It's not a woman. It's mummified as a dancing priest, one of those dancing priests I was showing you. And look at that special way that they wrapped the around her vulva area. It's a pentagram.
So this is a great mother devotee, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, you got to recognize that in Egypt, they're actually obsessed with that alchemical androgyny. So we saw Hatshepsut a minute ago with the beard on. Well, the men tend to wear women's wigs, and the women wear men's beards. They're always doing that sacred androgyny.
Adolf Ehrman's book about Egypt, it's a famous book from the 20th century. He has this whole chapter about how they obsessively shaved off all of their hairs and drew in their eyebrows, wore makeup, very much all very effeminate. That was the style. That was like you seemed like a royal if you were dressed up that way.
Exactly. You know, and one thing I wanted to point out about Florence Farr.
Oils and perfumes.
Oh, yeah. And even I liked how it melted down from their hair, Jimi Hendrix style, and you get the purple haze. Florence Farr,
like go back to Shaw now.
If you could go back one image real quick, Snappy. So this lady right here, that was the head of the Golden Dawn, that was into the mummies in ancient Egypt, eventually went to Sri Lanka for some gurus in Sri Lanka. But what's interesting is she had cancer, and she had to have a mastectomy. One of her breasts was cut off. And at that point, she sent a letter to her friends, you know, because she was friends with Oscar Wilde and W.B. Yeats and people of the time like that. Her last letter that she sent to Yeats, the poet, she says, now I'm a Scythian Amazon, because she had a mastectomy because of the cancer. Her last letter said, now I am a Scythian Amazon worthy of the gods. And then she passed away a month later. Just wanted to throw that out there, the connection between the Scythian, the one breast.
Yeah, I love Yeats.
A great Celtic poet.
Oh, yeah. So her last letter was to him now, and her saying that she's now a Scythian Amazon because she had her breast cut off. Now, I bring that up because Scythian warriors, the Scythian goddesses that we'll see in the burial, had a fake beard.
He's the one that said that Helen of Troy was the first Messiah.
Oh, love it.
First
love
Christ.
It.
He actually uses the word Christ too, by the way. So let me correct myself.
And it's ironic because of Helena and the Cairo symbol. Constantine, so Herodotus, we talked about book 4 in Libya. He has Herodotus' book 2, and he talks about Scythia and the Egyptian army in the battles. Herodotus says that there was an Egyptian army that went to Scythia and retired there after the war, and they settled in Scythia. Because I'm building this weird connection between Egypt and Scythia and Medea and stuff. It's wild because I want to get into the dragons of Scythia. So go a couple images now. Boom, right here is a Scythian dragon. Because we're talking about earlier, people posit that Lancelot kills a dragon in some myths. Lancelot is a Sarmatian or Scythian knight. Besides the Romans and the Romanians mounting dragons on their poles and going into battle, the Scythians would also do it too. They would raise dragons on the poles and go into battle. A dragon was part of their symbol because the Dracina, supposedly the founder of the Scythian race is a woman that's half serpent and half priestess, the Dracina.
Wild.
All right, so I just got a couple more pictures for y'all before y'all take it over. So we're at Scythia right now. We're dragons in the Scythian army carrying dragons into battle, just like the Romans copied later. The Chinese, right here. So that image is Mongolia right there. Some people say that's where dragons originate, is Mongolia. Some of the oldest dragon myths have been traced there. Xanadu. You ever heard of Xanadu?
Mm-hmm.
No, what's Xanadu?
Yes, Xanadu is a place in Mongolia. Besides being a hit song from Olivia Newton-John.
Oh wow.
They used dragons. There was dragon magic. So now I would like to enter the Eastern Dragon Gate, where you guys will take it over after that, because you guys are into that a lot. So go to the next image. All right. I want to talk about this. This is the empress. Her name is Wu Zetian. She was an actual legit female Chinese empress. She was wearing a dragon robe right there. That's what they would wear. It's called the dragon robe with dragons on it. And when the dragons on these robes are different in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese by the amount of toes that they have on their feet. That's how you can tell the difference in them. Now, she would sit on something that's called the dragon throne. In the Forbidden City, that's something called the dragon throne. And some of them practice. There's something that's called Dragon's Gate Taoism. There's a lot to this story. And she's known as a dragon lady, this empress. And there's one more dragon lady. That was the Dowager Cixi. And that was at the turn of the century, 1800s. She was the last a Chinese female emperor because she ruled through her sons. That's what a dowager is. Like when your son's in control, or you die and you rule for them or something. She banned lotus foot, where they do Chinese foot binding. I don't know if you guys know about that Chinese foot binding, where they break their feet as children and tie them together. Yeah, she banned that stuff.
What the hell's going on my computer?
The dragon lady. So yeah, so I brought you up to the dragon lady at the dragon throne. Now, and one thing that's wild, I just want to mention, the last thing I want to mention, what the dragon lady did, Empress Wu Zetian. She brought in Sanskrit scholars from India to interpret a prophecy about the Bodhisattva being reborn as a female, and she used that as part of her claim to the throne. Because she took over when her husband died. She was just a concubine from a village that became the emperor's favorite, and then took over and ruled for 45 years, helping develop China at that time. And part of it was she used a prophecy from India saying she was the reincarnation of the Bodhisattva from India. So there you go.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's wild. Well, thanks, Dion. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any comments about Dion's presentation, Ryan or Neil?
Fantastic. Yeah, I loved
amazing.
it. I think that motif of a dragon on a staff or a serpent on a stick or is clearly astronomical, but there's also I think it's related to the military because of that scary thing. We've spoken about it before, that biologically you are geared up to spot a serpent and that movement before you anything else, even something like a bear. So to put that on a stick would be absolutely frightening. Jordan Peterson sees the serpent on the staff as being that kind of a thing, like, look at what scares you, and when you can face that down, then it'll be medicine to you. But
I think it also has
the analogy is deeper than that. There's definitely glance of that, just the same as with Medea. It's a very similar symbol to Medea. The Gorgon, I mean, excuse me.
I think we've seen here too, right? Is this kind of empire building transition, flipping of the poles magic. And what you do, part of that magic is you turn your enemy into a dragon, and then you slay that dragon and you consume them, right? We were talking about this in our presentations the other week, right? And it is through that process that then you become the dragon and you wield them, you know? And it's like that all of this magic is always about that other and the vilification of the other. This is where you can create that monstrous, and that's that monstrous image that you can use in that warfare, right? It's no surprise to me that this all happens on the fields of Mars, right? That's where the dragon sits, is in that transitional period. There has to be a fight to who ascends that throne and is able to lay claim to that empire, right?
True that.
What do you think, Neil?
Dion's always bringing some crazy shit, so I just was enjoying it. I'm gonna have to compliment him with some Silk Road Taoist stuff when it's my shot. But that was awesome. The dragons, the mushrooms coming out, and that was I can't believe you found an inscription on the wall. Like, inscriptions are the best because there's no debating what it said. There's no what if it's interpolation. None of that shit. It's right there. It's dated to the time period. We know what it is, and they're holding a bag of mushrooms.
Yeah.
It's awesome, dude. That's so
hieroglyphics. Good. So we know it goes way back. And
right.
they had because we know they would grow bees in tubes.
Can you pull that one up again one more time before we move on? I want to see that again.
You were fine then until you said, we know they grew bees in tubes.
Yes, tubes. And Adobe are the Adobe tubes. They would create these long pipes, these long ceramic pipes, and those were their beehives.
There it is. Where is this?
Yeah,
do you remember where this is from?
This is, I think it was Edfu.
Oh.
It's either Edfu, and now the things on top, if you notice, those are blue lily at the top.
Yeah.
So you could look at all the different images on there, and that could be all a psychoactive formula.
That's a drug manual.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is about what I'm about to bring too. Is another drug manual. It's like Orphic Hymns meets drug manual. That's what this is.
Wild.
It looks boring to people, but those are all psychoactives on there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Too cool. All right. Well, before we
Snuffy,
get to
I'm sending you 2 images, by the way.
I got one of them. I didn't get the other one.
I've just sent you another one now.
Okay. I will save this and get it up.
I'm not going to interject that, by the way.
Neil, do you want to go then so I can?
I can if you want to get yours together still.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, let me pull up. So first, I'll share my screen. I'm just going to swing by Wikipedia real quick just to give a little rundown of the Silk Road. So if you don't mind, pull that up. All right, Silk Road. Everyone knows what the Silk Road is, but I wanted to look at this map just to show people like where it goes. It goes to Mongolia and then it goes to China in both of these directions. But then it goes through this area right here. This is where the big markets are. If you actually look up the Silk Road, this circle right here is all markets. And it's a plateau surrounded by mountains over here, Tibetan mountains over here, Mongolian mountains over here. And then there's a big plateau right here where it's all just markets. And the reason why it's right here is because that's where all the east meets west. And guess what's right here? Right where the marketplace starts off. So you have this marketplace starts off over here. There's a marketplace starts off over here. What is this right here? Guess what this is? It is the Greco-Bactrian kingdom. This Greco-Bactrian kingdom starts off, by the way, it says 256, but which is true. The kingdom does begin as the Seleucids kind of give over the reins to this king, Eucratides, whatever his name is, or whatever his name. Yeah. And so the Seleucids are like, all right, we can't hold the East anymore. We got to focus on Syria. We got to focus on Babylon and Syria. You guys, good luck. Bye. And this is what happens. They leave, and the Greeks are stuck here, and they're almost like forgotten about. Because when we talk about when we read history, we read Plutarch, we read Cassius Dio, we read Tacitus and Suetonius. It's all about the Greeks over here. It's all about the Seleucids. It's all about the Ptolemy. It's all about the Macedonians and the Romans. And they barely ever talk about what's going on over here. But there's a whole bunch of shit happening over here. A lot of fascinating shit. Now, it actually starts before 256. Because when Alexander the Great got there in 327, he already found Greeks there. So what the hell? How does Alexander... I thought Alexander was the one who founded all those cities. By the way, he actually set up a city called Alexandria over here. See how it says that Alexandria Eshkete? That means Alexandria the farthest.
Hey, Neil?
Yeah.
If you go back to that image real quick,
yeah,
where you're at, one back, and you see where that coin is?
Yeah.
Scroll up above it. Right there. See what that word is? Basileia.
Yeah, the king. He's the king.
Yeah, the crested dragon.
Is it on him?
I think Basil literally means king.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. He is the king of this region. So, yeah, he would be the dragon of the region. That's true. But, yeah, so this area right here, you have Alexandria. We all know about this Alexandria. But there's three other Alexandrias over here. Alexandria the farthest, Alexandria the Caucasus, and then Alexandria Arcosia. And these are big trading port cities. Big trading, big deal cities. They were big cities. And I just want to point something out real quick. So when Alexander got there was already Greeks there. He's like, what the hell? But the reason why is because during the Persian period, Cyrus and not Demetrius, Darius, they started taking Greeks from Libya, from Cyrene, in the Pentapolis, and they started relocating them over to the east because they wanted to populate that side of the world with Greeks. So when Alexander got there in 323, they thought that he was liberating them from the yoke of the Persians, which is kind of was. So there was already Greeks there. He already had all the things he needed to make a whole city. Now, if we go back to the Silk Road, one more thing I want to point out. The Silk Road starts way back in 202 BCE during the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty is so fascinating because they mirror the Romans. The Romans, you can almost argue that the Romans became the Romans around 200 BCE when they beat the Carthaginians and when they import Magna Mater. That's when the Romans starts to grow as an imperial republic, right? The same with the Han Dynasty. Right around 200 BCE, the Han Dynasty starts to expand and get big, and they last all the way up until the 3rd century of the Common Era, and that's what I would argue about the Romans. After the 3rd century of the Common Era, the Romans are done, in my opinion. That's just they'd become a whole another Christian world after that. And this is a crisis of the 3rd century. It was the end of the Romans, I think. All right. So what you have here is you have these two major dynasties, the Han Dynasty and the Romans, and in the middle of them are these Greeks, are these Greco-Bactrians. And there's a trade route going all the way from the Han Dynasty through the Greco-Bactrian kingdom, through Persia to Babylon, and then it goes down into Egypt over here, and then up all the way to where Constantinople, Byzantium was. So you get to the Roman world and the Egyptian world through these ways, and then all the roads go through the Greeks. Isn't that something? It goes through. You have to go through the Greeks no matter what. So what is a result of all this? What happens after? So we all know what they were trading. They were trading Purple from the west, silk from the east. That's why they get to know it's Silk Road. So I'm going to share another screen if you don't mind. I'll get to it right now. This is going to be cool. Julius Caesar. What do you know? The sources say that Julius Caesar was wearing silk that he got from, guess what it says? Doesn't say the Chinese. He got it from the Greeks, it says. Which means the author, this is what scholars say, the author didn't know that the silk, because the Chinese, they know how to make silk, and they kept it secret. It was part of their national security risk, that nobody will know how we make. The same with purple in the West. It was kind of like a secret thing. Well,
same was said of flexible glass. Do you know that one? The story of flexible glass.
Flexible
this guy
glass.
discovered it. Yeah, flexible glass. It's a bit of a myth, but it is from the Roman period that one of the Caesars had discovered that one of his subjects had invented flexible glass.
Wow.
And that he rushed over straight away, and under pain of death, he was to never produce any again because he realized how it would mess everything up, how it would mess up the glass industry.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the source, so Seneca the Younger talks about women wearing silk that they got from the Greeks in the East. They're talking about these Greco-Bactrians because to them, they don't even really, I think they know the Han Dynasty exists, but they're so far that it's not even on their radar. So when they get the silk, it's coming from the Greco-Bactrians. So they think the silk comes from the Greeks. They're like, oh, we got silk from the Greeks in the East. But they know they got it from the Silk Road, from the Chinese, from the Han Dynasty. So the sources talk about Julius Caesar wearing splendid silk and having his laurel crown on as he walked into the Senate. And everybody was like, whoa, look at that. Look what he's wearing. And it was like one of the first people to ever wear silk in the West was Julius Caesar. Seneca the Younger also talks about one of his sources, women wearing silk that they got from the Greeks in the East. So I thought it was fascinating how they credit the Greeks for this. That to me tells me that it's the Greco-Bactrians that they're getting it from. Now, remember, we had this last week. We were talking about this Greek-influenced statue of the Buddha, of the Bodhisattva, from the 2nd to 3rd AD. That's towards the end of the Greco-Bactrian kingdom. Before the Greco-Bactrian kingdom stays around until like 250 to 300 AD. So this is like one of their last big achievements. Is this right here?
Where is that in the present day? Is that like Kazakhstan or somewhere like that?
Afghanistan. Yeah, Afghanistan.
Yeah. But they're quite mixed now. Half of them are like Mongolian and the other half are
the
like
Afghanistan,
dark olive skin European looking.
The Afghanis still have Greek on their coins to this day. They still take seriously their Greek heritage as part of their history. What? Yeah. So if you look,
Alexander a folk hero there.
What's that?
Is Alexander a bit of a folk hero there?
Exactly. They love it. He's on some of their money.
Cool.
Greek money. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Afghanistan. Here it is. Wait. Is this it? Here, look at it. Check this out. Yeah, this is pretty much the same thing. So I know there's coins too, but this was just one I just pulled up real quick where they actually mimic the old. Look at this. This is the Afghanistan bank. This is modern. If you look at, there's Greek right there. Greek right there, and look at it's modeled after the old Greco-Bactrian coins, because Afghanistan was called the Greco-Bactrian kingdom. That's who they were. They know this. They don't care. They love it. And you're right. Alexander's one of their heroes because Alexander founded this kingdom. So they love Alexander. So that's that.
Wow.
Let's go back to let me see. I want to go back to my slides. I'm getting to the good stuff. Let's see. What the hell is it? Okay. So we're looking at this, right? Make sure. Okay. Now this is Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is one of these Taoists who writes the Tao Te Ching. Tao Te Ching is this famous Taoist text. There you go. Or Tao Te Ching. I guess it doesn't matter. Different dialects pronounce it differently. You see smart asses go, it's Tao Te Ching. And then you'll be like, well, this dialect says Tao Te Ching. So why should I listen to you?
Te Ching.
Yeah. They're like,
it would be like because they're choosing either a D or a T, and it's the D and T's pronounced the same. It's like a Tao.
It would be like correcting somebody for saying Jesus and not Jesus.
Well, like when people correct you on the pronunciation of a town, and it's like, well, is it Paris or is it Paris? I'm English, It's Paris.
Right. So that's Tao Ti. This is him right here. All right. Now I want to show you something. That's him right there. There's a big statue of him over in this region, Tibet or China, I think. This is in China. That's him again. So they take him seriously. See, he's got the yin and the yang. He's always holding a text.
Hey, Neil, if you could go back real quick, because that's one of the images I use sometimes. Look at his right hand, what it's doing.
I noticed that. What is going on with this?
That's the apotrophic symbol that you'll find on Etruscan tombs, in Vedantic literature, and Buddhist statues. This is a symbol they'll throw up.
Yeah, because that was on purpose.
Right. And so on the next one, he's going to be doing this with one finger.
Yeah. He's always got a text in his hand, or he's always doing some sort of hand symbol. And look there's the hair, the thing we did last week,
which is either a mushroom or a top knot of dreads.
Yeah.
And you'll see that dent on his forehead because in a lot of literature, Buddha supposedly had elongated skull or a knot on his head.
Do you want to know what I think?
Wisdom.
Do you want to know what I think of this image of his face? I think this is the Eastern Socrates. He looks exactly like Socrates. Have you seen Socrates?
Yeah.
He looks exactly like Socrates. Look at this. Here, I'll show. Let me see. I thought this is a good one. Tell me this doesn't look like Socrates. Shaved, bald head with like the kind of like the he's kind of like he kind of has that stare,
Well,
Anyways.
To me, when I look at Lao Tzu and I read about Lao Tzu, right, it's just the old man, right?
Yeah.
He is the manifestation of the Tao itself. He comes into being to speak the word at the gate, and then he disappears. And he's that, to me, this reminds me of the Green Man, right?
He's the great wisdom lover,
right?
The lover of Sophia.
But we see this archetype also of this wild man of the woods that comes to bestow wisdom and then returns to the wood.
Yep.
Also Dionysus, but it's like primordial.
Watch what you're about to see. Pull it up again. So you can see he has that Socratic look. He's the old man, as you said, coming out of the woods.
Harpocrates sign of silence, right?
Yeah, he checks all the boxes of a Bacchus. Remember last week I said, become a Bacchus. Become a living Bacchus. This is a living Bacchus right here. And this is what I'm going to prove it right now. So this is an image of Lao Tzu. I think this is medieval or something, right? And he's riding some weird looking animal, right? Well, now, this is how they depict Dionysus. Dionysus is usually, there's thousands of these, where Dionysus is riding sideways on an animal, holding cups, holding a bunch of tools and staffs. He's got all of his belongings on him. He's carrying all his stuff around, and he's sitting sideways on an animal. It's very awkward looking. It's like an image.
Feminine.
It's a very
feminine
weird
way of riding.
Yeah, and look here's Lao Tzu riding sideways on a bull, just like Dionysus riding sideways on a bull, holding a text, right? He's a text dragon, this guy. Here's Dionysus riding sideways on some sort of leopard or cheetah or something.
Notice what he's wearing, though. He's wearing the women's robes.
It looks like he's wearing silk, too.
Clear. Yeah.
It looks like he's wearing silk from the Silk Road. That looks like silk.
I think that might also be an analogy for, because he's said to ride on panthers, and with the mushroom thing, there's a panther cap mushroom, very similar to Amanita muscaria.
The Amanita panthera.
Yeah.
They're huge, and they're a little more yellowy than red.
Brownie, it's just like they're not as easily identifiable, so they're not as trustworthy. But apparently, they're even more crazy.
And there's the yellowish look to them. So there's that. Now here's another one, riding on the bull sideways. Holding a staff, and he's got a disciple with him holding a staff.
He's got his wine jug hanging from his
staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at this. Dionysus with his disciples riding on an animal with the wine jug. So you see, there's like the way Lao Tzu is depicted, he is a living Bacchus. He has the Socrates face. He's the gadfly. He's going to force the world to change their ways. That's what he's going to do. And you're going to see in the text that I'm about to bring, too, how successful he is in that. Dionysus riding sideways on an animal with his disciples, holding a staff. Lao Tzu.
And where's Lao Tzu from? Do you know?
He's from China.
What area?
He's from China.
What area? It's a big place, isn't it?
Yeah, that I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question. You can probably look that up if you want to.
I'll look that up now.
Yeah, look that up. There's Dionysus again. This is from an island. I forgot which island it's from, but that's where they dug up that from like 200 BC or something like that. All right, so he writes this. He writes, "What is the Tao?" This is the opening passage of Lao Tzu's writings. He says the Tao. By the way, that means the way, the odo, the odon in Greek. So it's the same, and this is what Socrates would say: the way, the way, the way. So this is, to me, this is no different than pre-Socratic philosophy. The Taoism is like pre-Socratic philosophy. The way cannot be understood. It is not eternal. Cosmic Tao, just an idea that can be expressed in words, is not the infinite idea. And yet this ineffable Tao is the source of all spirit and matter. That's that Orphic spirit and matter, right? That's the Orphic dualism, spirit and matter. Expressing itself it is the mother of all created things. Not to desire material things is to know freedom of spirituality. That sounds like straight from the lips of Diogenes or Crates.
Notice we also get the Trinity here, right? We have the divine unity, but we also have the Trinity of the mother and the twinning. Pythagorean. Yeah.
And this guy lived in the same time as Pythagoras, 5th, 6th century BC. That's how old this is. Very old. This is super ancient. This is pre-Socratic times. This is before the Hellenistic era. Not to desire material things is to not know the freedom of spirit. Wait a minute. Am I thinking of Confucius? When did Lao Tzu live? I don't want to get that wrong.
I think Lao Tzu is a largely
Yeah, no, I was right. 6th century BC. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't confuse him. Him and
I think it's mythological though. Essentially, when you look into it,
I'm
sure there was a guy.
I've heard people say that, but I don't think there's any reason to doubt this guy existed. But
if he existed, he was so humble he did not want to be known, right? Yeah. And all that survived.
They found this on a mountain in Tibet. This text, you know that this was found on a mountain in Tibet by itself.
That's cool.
It wasn't being passed around for people. Isn't that crazy?
Cool. That is cool.
And he said, let me finish this off. He says, this sounds like it's coming from a pre-Socratic, not to desire material things, is to know the freedom of spirituality. And to desire them is to suffer the limitations of matter. He's talking about material things. Matter and spirit. The unity is the mystery of mysteries. That language right there is so pre-Socratic. And he says, to know eternity, to seek an open mind, the ideal of vacuity, seek composure, the essence of tranquility. All things are in process, rising and returning. Listen, how familiar is this? Plants blossom for a season and then return to the root. It's that Dionysian dying and rising of nature. In returning to the root, we find tranquility. This leads to our destiny, which is eternity. To know eternity is enlightenment. To ignore eternity is to invite calamity. Knowing eternity means seeing the big picture. I'm just going to skip down here. The Tao is divine. The Tao is eternal. Death is not to be feared. This is like it almost sounds like he got initiated in Lazarus mysteries.
What's important here, though, is what you're seeing is what you get in a lot of this pre-Socratic, this really early philosophy. It's not what I call it's a qualified forms of monism. You get this affirmation of the unity, but also an affirmation of the multiplicity, and you have this engagement of the multiplicity. There isn't a denial of the generation.
Yeah. Well said.
In fact, they're telling you the point of the Tao is to fall into generation, and you need to go with the flow of generation. Right?
Well said.
Flows with nature, but there is still this unity, this monism, but it's qualified. It's what they would say in like Kashmiri Shaivism is you get the one and the many, right?
Yeah. Well said.
I need to say, Neil, that I don't agree that it's just pre-Socratic. I think this is the natural language of mystics. This is that serpent knowledge and serpent tongue. It's whether you were a mystic then or a mystic now, you can't help but talk like this.
Yes,
because this is what it's about.
I agree with you 100%. You'll get to this place no matter what direction you come at it from. You'll end up in this place. This is
why it's called the Tao, the way.
The way.
There was a famous swordsman in Japan called Miyamoto Musashi, and he wrote a book called The Five Rings. And basically, the 4 elements plus the 5th element, much like the Olympic rings.
Yep.
And
that's awesome.
what he said is no matter what arts you engage in, you can't help but find, in Japan it's called Do, the Do, the way, because it's in all things. It's the natural consequence of observing the universe and this metaphysic that's present.
Yeah. And that word in Greek, Odo, almost sounds like dough. It's just with an O in the front.
But
you know what I mean?
We can also extrapolate this far greater into a lot of the more modern esotericism and occultism. What is the Tao in the esoteric world? It is that middle path, right?
Yeah.
It is walking between the poles. It is walking the long and winding road. It is passing through the eye of the needle, right? Utilizing that reason to its utmost greatest point. Right?
Christianity had originally been called the Way at the beginning as well. Its first name, as I recall.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is. No, that's what they call it. Yeah, look at this. I'll show you right now. Yeah, exactly. Look at this. Odos. So it's almost like you have that do in there. You know what I mean? It's almost like there's like a relationship between Odos and do. Yeah. Look, this is the way, the road. You just said, Steph, you just said middle road. Look at to Eleusis. Isn't that something? The way. It's the way. And look, if you actually look through the sources, you'll see there's a lot of Christian sources in here too, because that's what they called Christianity before they called it Christianity. They called it the way.
And Snappy said it's that central path that's from Kabbalah to Buddhism. You know, it's the middle way. And again, those 2 pillars are those 2 things in the sky that I keep going on about. The 2 poles. It's this ancient serpent system. This is why we're talking about the dragon's tongue. This is it.
Journey or voyage. Homer
like,
uses it for the journey and the voyage.
But let's even take this further, right? We can go into Acca Laurentia in the Roman or Hecate in the Greek. These are the mothers at the crossroads who give birth to all of these daimonic spirits and control this middle pathway between these realms, right?
Yep.
And that relates to this virgin magic that we've been following, to that Medea system, to the whole entire magical system is about learning to cross between these, to find that middle path, to draw down that star, to engage in this cycle, right?
Yeah, well said. So this is the source, the spirit of the perennial spring, and is said to be immortal. She, notice how he says she is called the mysterious one. The mysterious one is the source of the universe. She is continually, endlessly giving forth life without effort. Wow, I love this. I love this passage right here. I don't know why. It's so good. It's so good.
The spirit of perennial spring. Also, that is Dionysus.
It is. Or Persephone, the Corey.
Persephone. You get them both, right? It's that twinning again, right? This is that mystery of the one. The mysterious one is the source, continuously ever giving forth life without ever. She's that creatrix, both masculine and feminine, fundamentally.
It's so good.
Right?
It's so good. Yeah. So then he says, become childlike. He says to know this harmony is to know eternal truth. To know the eternal is to know enlightenment. And he basically says, as creatures grow and mature, they begin to decay. This is the opposite of the Tao. It's about immortality, right? So there's a lot of that language out there too. Look at poison that will sting them, being stung. You know what I mean? Know yourself. This is what's on Delphi. Know yourself. It's written on Delphi.
Said that, right? Femino, the Pythia, wrote that down.
Yeah. So I would almost be shocked if he didn't know about the Delphian Greeks. But he's saying those who know both their masculine and their feminine sides become fruitful, like the valleys of the earth. Being like the valleys of the earth, their vitality will not desert them. They will remain energetic as children. This is about immortality. knowing yourself, all your different sides of yourself. And then he says, being worthy models.
Walking the middle path. You have to be able to access both of those powers. You have to be both man and woman.
It's
right?
so good,
Depending
isn't it?
on fortune, right?
Radiating.
Got to remember that these guys as well are the energy guys. These are the ones with the actual electric magic powers when you look into it. They're the aura, the energy field guys. So you've got to recognize this as you would do a guru for yoga. You know, they're equally as powerful, equally as advanced in these practices.
Radiating.
So a lot of the analogies will be for that kind of stuff. Sorry, Neil.
No, you're good. You're good.
Sorry.
Radiating simplicity. Wise rulers inspire others to follow their path. That's a Bacchus. That's a gadfly. Inspiring other peoples to follow your path. That's a Bacchus. It's a living Bacchus. She is making of a great administration. So this is what these Taoists look like. They wore silk robes. They wore purple too, by the way. They traded for purple in the West. This is the first text that I got here. Is called The Great Petition for Sepulchral Plaints. And I'll explain what that is in a second. Basically, it says, the title refers to sepulchral plaints, lawsuits initiated by aggrieved spirits of the dead in the courts of the underworld. What? That's fucking Dionysus going down into Hades and judging the dead and bringing the dead back up. This is Aristophanes' frogs, but just the ancient Eastern Tibetan version of that. And it says, aggrieved spirits of the dead in the courts of the underworld, which could also implicate the living, especially the living kin of the accused, and punish them with illness. Did you know that the spirits of the dead are going to judge you? I love this. This, of course, brings even closer to before the influence of bureaucratic styles of organization on religious ideology and practice, morality, judgment, and illness. And so that's what that means. It says right here, more surprisingly, perhaps, given that Taoism is often portrayed as a religion whose primary concern is the attainment of immortality. Let's be clear on what the purpose of this is. You are to become a Bacchus and become immortal. The sepulchral component of the title has especially great importance. The Great Petition was to use combat the ill effects of living of a sepulchral plaints and constitutes just one of the many examples of the use of Taoist ritual documents to handle the dangers posed by death. So here we go. This is called the Purple Text. It's basically like the Orphic Hymns meets a drug manual. You're about to find out why I said that. So it says right here, this is how it starts off. The Grand Lord Azur, lad of the Eastern Seas, resident of the Eastern Palace of Fangzhou, conducted a purification retreat for 3 years within the yellow chambers and cinnabar red gates of his holy tower. Then he mounted his cloudy chariot. This is so esoteric, by the way. None of this is literal to be taken literally. You're going to find
about a dragon.
Yeah,
Neil, you found the passage about a dragon. That's what it's talking about.
I'm going to get there.
That's the Azure dragon of the East.
Right. Let's see what he says. Then he mounted his cloudy chariot, composed of dark blue auroras and the flowing effulgences of his 3 spirit registers. He threw across his shoulders the halcyon plumed dragon, as you just pointed out, the dragon cloak of flying Azura, and leading a retinue of 1,000 perfected from the mulberry groves, proceeded. This is like a Beatles song. It's so like esoteric. Proceeded on a high to the visit golden port of upper clarity. There he requested the upper scripture of the purple text inscribed by the spirits. What? Is your mind not blowing right now? Tell me your mind.
I mean, no, I know quite a bit about Chinese alchemy, and they have all kinds of stuff, but the purple's a great find.
Yeah, we're Snappy.
Snappy fainted.
Oh, it's all good. I'll have to swing back to this one. I thought this would blow Snappy's mind right here. So the next one says, the method for collecting and swallowing the yin flower. What? Told you it's a drug manual. And swallowing lunar essence from the purple text, inscribed by the spirits of the palace of golden port in the heaven of upper clarity. Oh, there's Snappy.
Believe
Snappy,
how much
you missed something. Snappy, you missed
You
something.
wouldn't believe how much
Oh,
you're
show
fitting
me,
into
show
what
me.
I've
Sorry,
got to
guys.
talk about.
I just had to take off for a second.
No, you're good. I totally understand. This it opens up the purple text with the most esoteric, deeply layered, almost impossible to crack text about this character, this grand lord Azure lad of the Eastern Seas. He threw across his shoulders the halcyon plumed dragon cloak of the flying Azure, and leading a retinue of 1,000 perfected from the mulberry groves, proceeded on high to visit the golden port of upper clarity. There he requested the upper scripture of purple text inscribed by the spirits. What?
That is wild.
Honestly, I
Dragon
do
did
know what they're
dragon
talking about,
skin.
and I'm going to talk about that in my presentation.
Awesome. I can't wait. I want to know
Okay.
I want to get any thoughts on this. And then it
My
says,
first thought
Go ahead.
is literally that he's okay. Part of the thing with the golden fleece is it's a cloak, right? The dragon's skin, the skin of the serpent, you can then wear as armor. We saw those statues of Athena where she has the Gorgon skin, right? So this is the cloak. It's like they slayed the dragon. They're wearing it as a cloak in order to ascend to the highest point, right? To gain that drug knowledge.
and what does he do when he puts on the dragon cloak? He requests the upper scripture of the purple text inscribed by the spirits. What? I'm so blown away by this text right here. I don't know why.
No, I love
Dion,
it. I love
you're
it.
smiling over there. What do you think?
You've got right down to the absolute bones of it, but obviously, I don't want to say anything until it's my turn.
All right, let's because
I
there's a
also
lot
keep
more.
thinking of the DMT purple lady, but I always
Yeah.
think about her.
So check this out.
Dragon robe. Now, the dragon robe is the sign. Like I said, the amount of toes on the dragon robe has different meanings. Like I didn't even know that. I thought it's just a dragon on a robe. But it has
It's
multiple
because
meanings.
only royalty were allowed to use the 5-toed dragon because it was for the 5 elements. They were only not allowed to know about the 4 elements. The 5th one was a secret, and the 5th one's the yellow dragon that's talked about. The Azure dragon that's talked about there.
This right
And that
here.
Azure dragon is a portion of the sky. It's divided into 4 animals: a dragon, a
Right.
turtle, a
Look.
tiger, and a phoenix.
You just said it. Because right here it says within the golden port there are 4 thearchical lords, 4 of them. Among them, the sage lord of the latter age occupies the highest position. What the fuck? It almost makes you think, like, are they talking about 4 sages from the four empires? Maybe the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, and the Eastern part. Like, is that what's going? I don't know what they're talking about here.
If you find dragons, they're talking about time, and these are 4 seasonal constellations. Simple.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I think you're right.
They call some of them the winter dragon because they even have names specifically of a seasonal name. Like one of them is the winter dragon, is one of the ones I came across.
Wow.
And there's something called the Book of Chu, which you might have heard of, which goes into that dragons are mushrooms.
Wow.
And it literally talks about dragons and mushrooms, and it talks about cannabis too. And they're actually riding the dragon. It shows these immortals riding on dragons.
When you're on DMT, it's like being riding a dragon for sure. That's one thing.
So
Now-
if you let me interject very briefly with one of my images, I can just get the majority of my presentation over right now. Just by showing you.
Hold that. If you want to do it, you sure you want to do it now? Because I still have more of this.
All right, you can carry on with it. I just want to show you something, and then it'll become a lot clearer.
Go ahead.
So go on to the next image, please, Snappy. I promise I'll keep it brief, Neil.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So this is the oldest symbol of Taoism, and is like completely celebrated by China even now after the communist stuff, because a lot of this stuff got kicked out. This is carved into a mountain, like, I think it's like 2,600 BC, something like that.
Damn.
Now, there's a guy holding a purple book at the top in some of them.
Are you serious? Holding a purple text?
Yeah, around where the pineal gland is. But what it is this is the human body, but put over an island map. And this is Taoism in symbology. Obviously, Neil, you're great with the texts. I'm symbols guy, so this is what I turn to. So I've been learning this recently because I've been learning Tai Chi, coincidentally. And Tai Chi often comes from or goes hand in hand with dragon and tiger, Chinese medical Qi Gong, which is moving the energy around your body. Much like Kundalini stuff, they're doing the same thing. We've got a water wheel at the bottom and an ocean right at the bottom where the lower parts of your torso is. And what they're doing is, by using focus and pulling perineums and yoga-like movements, they're moving the cerebrospinal fluid, which is literally a river there, back up the spine. And this is kind of a medical analogy for pushing that water, reversing the water wheel, they put it as, goes back up the spine. And there's a series of symbolic analogies. And it's basically described as a weather system. So when they're talking about going from below to above and then back around again, it's something they call the microcosmic orbit. There's also a macrocosmic orbit, but this is all weather, water, fire analogies and terrain analogies. So if they're up in the mountains, up in the high courts where the yellow emperor is, or the yellow court, that's at the top of this map here.
Wow.
In these sacred mountains, it's the same thing. This is the holy mountain from all the texts. We've got it. It's in mystical Christianity too. It's just not as explicit.
It's like the world tree symbol.
It's exactly the world tree symbol, yeah. And it's the pole of the earth, that North Pole thing. You're the same. You've got a North Pole. One of the techniques actually is, which I was doing myself today, is rather than hold yourself over your spine as your center, which a lot of martial artists will do, if you actually press forwards, press your spine back, so the actual center of your body is in the center of your gravity, rather than it being slightly pushed back towards the spine. There's a compression happens, and when you breathe, it pumps that fluid up the spine. And it was actually remarkable, the change, just from that bit of a posture and do the things I was normally doing. I felt blissed out. I felt like I just had a joint by the time I'd finished.
Well, I just want to say too, Ryan, like we've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. It is still encoded within the esoteric Christianity. It survives in the tarot explicitly, right? Like I would say that the devil card is fundamentally the climbing of the mountain. At least that's what it is supposed to symbolically represent. You know. Well,
this is it, and I think so many people have it pointed out that astrology, particularly Carl Jung, you know what Neil was talking about before, with all these different tribes essentially sharing similar legends and myths. Well, it's because they're all looking up at these maps, and it's like they're pointing you at the zodiac all the time. The knowledge we have about the zodiac now is exactly the same as knowledge as they had about the zodiac then, because it's based on archetypes. It doesn't matter what the writers have said since. Those archetypes always say the same thing, especially when you compare them to each other. So learn the goddamn zodiac. Stop being lazy. When you do that, it all unlocks. They're telling you that all the myths use the zodiac, from Babylon to flipping China. China has their own. Yeah, but people don't learn it because they think it's silly astrology. Do you know what I mean? It's not. Well, it's also, but it's not that. It's the psychology, the compendium of psychology for the ancients, and the map of symbols that they're using. It's literally the picking those symbols and using those, and not pretty much nothing else.
Yep, I agree.
Well, you know what? It's that symbolic that allows us to connect to that genius, right? That highest form of self, to those, we have to recognize that we are pulled in many, many different directions, and that we need this kind of personal calling. We need this kind of magical framework. We need this kind of disciplined action in order to be able to walk that middle path, in order to align ourselves with that will, right? Like, this is also psychology 101, right? Like, and it's not just Jung, it's all over the place, right? You see this stuff everywhere. And
it is mysticism.
It's also
what mysticism is,
yeah, it's also mysticism, learning to go with the flow, to find that true calling, and to, rather than to resist it, to go with it, and to live your life in that joy, right? To take that leap, not to be afraid, right? So much of this is also overcoming trauma and bull stuff, right? Like a lot of this spiritual side can only go so far, though. You have to also sort yourself out. You know, it's what's so knowing thyself is the most comprehensive form of this, right? And it also includes
find that
your physical
to be
health.
spiritualism. Yeah, no, that too. Yeah, but I find that to be spiritualism. That sort yourself out. That is really what is. It's spiritual is more negative than positive to me. You know, it's just constant reminders of what is bad, what is wrong. The good stuff, when you come across that, that's a heartfelt thing. You know, this is nice. You don't think about that. When something goes wrong, the brain naturally wants to cut things up and solve problems. So that's when you get caught up in your head. I just want to say that Neil was still talking before I jumped ahead. But can you share this
text to show? I got some drug text to show.
Cool. Can you see how this pretty much solves that text?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was glad you brought that up. So
right, and just to bring it to the dragon stuff too, right? This is all about overcoming these demonic urges, right? And putting them into control. Speaking to the demonic sorry, that's the wrong one. Speaking to the demonic aspects of the self, right? The draconic aspect of the self. The dragon tongue is listening and learning to control those energies in many ways.
In Taoism, it's the water level. The sea is at the bottom of the body, as you know, the curve at the bottom.
Supposed to go with the flow of of flux. It's very Heraclitean, very Heraclitean too, in a sense.
Water dragons, I wanted to say, dragons control the water. That's the most important part of it. That's why that is still perfect knowledge.
That's what Bruce Lee said.
That card in the tarot is the ultimate green man.
Be water, my friend.
Sorry, go ahead, Neil.
All right, so the method for collecting and swallowing the yin flower, so we were getting in the drug stuff now, and swallowing lunar essence from the purple text inscribed by the spirits of the palace of the golden port in the heaven of upper clarity. You can start to tell where some of this is influenced by the Greek side, and you can tell which side is influenced by the Han Dynasty side, by the language. This is what the words actually are. You can check the translations. It says, "Of old I received the method of the celestial Thearch, Lord of grand annuity." One of the names of this text is the scripture of yellow pneuma. There's a Greek word right there. That pneuma means spirit, or spirit, or
chi. They would say chi.
Yeah. Essence of yang, which is, and the fetal germ stored in heaven and hidden in the moon. What? You should
that's the microcosmic orbit.
Yeah,
that's the energy goes up the spine. So they're looking to have something called the eternal child. So in what they're doing, there are three cauldrons up the body. The lower cauldron, the lower dantian, which is kind of above the genitals and below the belly button. They concentrate on that area until they feel pregnant with this baby, and then eventually what happens is the yin, which is the feminine aspect, that yin flow which they swallow, it's swallowed because it must stay at the bottom of the stomach there. Your concentration must stay there. So that yin aspect, then after a while, after they condense this energetic feeling in the lower abdomen, I think scientifically they can do it in the lower abdomen because it doesn't conduct electricity very well in that area. So it said they have a feeling for a night or two that these two elements, the yin and yang feeling, dance around in that dantian area until they fuse together. And this is when the yellow, it's called the yellow chi. That's that pneuma word there. Chi means air in Chinese. Obviously, pneuma's got that air quality to it as well, but a spiritual air. They don't literally mean air. It's because it's related to breathing, and the way you do a lot of this is with breath, as with yoga. So this is this fetal germ now.
And
No,
pneuma was one of
yang.
these words that the pre-Socratics used for the monad, was the pneuma.
Yeah, I totally believe this stuff is in the Greek things as well. It's just that we've not looked at it because we're rediscovering this stuff now.
Yeah.
You know, as I was saying last week, I've been reticent to look at this because I thought it was woo. As I was reticent to look at the Zodiac, I thought that was woo. But when I did, everything unlocks. It's just you got to be studying it for long enough to be able to get to this point.
Yeah. Then it says, you should envision the moon at the time when it is newly emerged. Then so this is like some Orphic shit right here. Then facing the moon in the west, knock your teeth together 10 times. This secretly incant, calling the names of the white souls of the moon and the bindings of the 5 ladies within the moon. White souls of the moon shadowed Artemisia. That's one of these ancient drugs that we find in like Galen and all these other texts. Artemisia, scented loveliness, shrouded, and it's named after Artemis. Obviously, it's a poison.
Mm-hmm.
It's the poison that you put the arrows in, right?
Cool.
And it says, purple text once again. The method for collecting and ingesting the flying root, remember roots is where you get DMT from, and swallowing the solar pneumas from the purple text inscribed by the spirits of the palace of the golden port in the heaven of upper clarity. And then this has a bunch of shit here, but down here is where the list is. Cloud souls of the sun, orbed, phosphorus. That's Lightbringer. Envelope of reflectivity. Green glare. Red lads of revolving auroras. Dark blaze. Whirlwind simulacra. Having invoked the spirits in your mind, calling these 16 words, then close your eyes and seal your fists. Visualize the flowing auroras in 5 colors from within the sun, all approaching to receive your body down to your feet. Then envision these 5 pneumas rising to the top of your head. With this, the 5 colored flowing auroras of sunlight will enter into your mouth. Moreover, within the sunlight auroras, there will be the purple pneuma, as large as the pupil of your eye, but wrapped in several tens of layers and flashing brilliantly. This sounds like a DMT trip, dude. With the 5 colored rays of sun. This is called the flying root of solar efflorescence, the jade placenta, mother of water. Together with the 5 pneumas, it will enter your mouth. And it says, like, facing the sun, you got to do this incantation, and you got to mention the cinnabar pneumas, vermilion furnace, blazing liquids. You can read this later. Primal phosphorus, all that. It's just look at this. It's amazing. So
it's almost certainly a drug right over the top of what that other stuff. Well, they take lots of drugs. You know, Buddha's famous for meditating. Essentially, they're doing a standing kind of meditation. Yeah,
it says they eat this talisman. You're supposed to eat this talisman. This is the pneuma. This is the talisman that you have to make, and you have to swallow it. So you're taking it with the drugs. You're eating words. It's like Thoth feeding the words to the initiate. You ever seen that image?
It's purple ink on yellow paper is how they do a lot of the spells.
Yeah.
Funnily enough. Yeah.
It's probably dipped in something, you know. That's the talisman it's talking about, to be written on red and blue paper at midnight. Face east and swallow it. Provide with cinnabar writ of gratuity, and there's basically a lot of this repeating these lists. And then it says, swallow the talisman above, and then you get more incantations of yellow writ of purple tenuity, grand mystery, issues from the mystic pass, stored in heaven. So you get I think you get the point with these purple texts. I can't read the whole thing, but every page is like this. Every single page is just mind-blowing, esoteric list of things you say, lists of things you take, all this stuff. Embryos, talismans. It says, where is it? Will rise above to the purple court.
I like the line right there where it says heads wrapped in dragon flowers.
Which one was that? Back here?
Right in the middle of the text.
Oh, I was just on it? Oh, yeah. Whoa, that's what I was trying to find this one. Yes. I missed it. So this is one of the big ones that I found that I wanted to show everybody. Heads wrapped in dragon flowers, caped in vermilion, belted in green, raining on the raven black flowing darkness. Their auroras reflect an upper clarity, consuming the flowers of dawn. What? The flowers of dawn? What is that? They know. They have the text over there written about what these are. Mottled flower, joined tail feathers, pure gold, clear and glittering, glowing visage, displayed atop the estrade. There you go again. Mystic gleam, yellow and clear, highest pneuma of primal yin. Now it's the yin, not the yang. Moon essences, phosphorus of the night. Exalted on high in the dark palace, the 5 sovereign ladies, each mountain of position of mother. May the fetus fly in. May the newborn babe gradually emerge. What are they doing here? Are they extracting a drug from the fetus?
The same thing I was just talking about. It's the circling yin. Talking about that baby coming, the yin that circles the yang, the feeling. I know it sounds crazy to you, Neil, but it's this energy. Yeah, it's this energy that you get a feeling. It's like, because it feels like you're bloody pregnant. And so it circles it, and eventually they form together. If you're lucky, apparently some people die from it. And then not long after, there's a feeling of chords.
Talk about performing the mystery. This tops it all. This is straight up. You know what I'm guessing? I'm guessing that in the West they had texts like this, but the mysteries were so secret that anyone who revealed this would have been killed, and like Aeschylus was on trial. But in the East, this is what I'm guessing. They got their hands on this shit over in the Silk Road trade, and now we have it. This came from. I think this came from the West.
Do you know what language they were speaking in that Bactrian town? I take it they'd have been writing Greek, but what were they speaking?
Oh, they spoke Greek. They had Sanskrit speakers and Greek speakers over there.
Because when I've looked at Taoism, it's very kind of Persian.
Taoism is Chinese.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that when I look at the roots,
look at this text, though,
it's Persian.
Yeah.
Look at this text, though, guys, because you said dragon talisman on the left. That means like above the heart, right? We've been talking about that. In the with the phylacteries, right? They're always placed on the heart, over the chest. That's where you wear. That's where you have the Gorgon's head, right?
Yep. And it says they wear vermilion cloaks of phoenix feathers, jade pendants, gold medallions.
The vermilion bird is one of their four. There's these 4 beasts in those 4 quarters of the sky. The vermilion bird, the vermilion phoenix, is that one there. And there's a azure dragon, a black turtle surrounded by a snake, and a white tiger. So
and those it says, I will fly as a transcendent to the purple tenuity, there to pay court to the grand luminaries. This dude is high. This dude is so high right now. He's so lit.
Do you remember that map? There's a purple court and a yellow kingdom in the middle of that.
Yeah. Oh, what happened? What happened to my? Is this the one I already looked at? Will rise above to the purple court. We already saw this one, right? Yeah.
Golden Port.
Oh wait, did I pass the one that was? Let's see. All right. Anyways, we're rise above the purple court. And it says that's the mottled flower thing. We already saw that one. I don't know what happened to my thing. It just got glitched out for a second. This is where it starts to slow down. The first white soul is named Corpse Dog, like the Hades dog. You know what I'm talking about? The 3-headed dog. Cerberus. The first white soul. So this dude is descending down into Hades now. He's that high. He's completed the mystery. He's now in Hades. The first white soul is named Corpse Dog. The second is Subduing Arrow.
Subduing Arrow.
Arrow Poison. He's taking the arrow poison. The third, Sparrow Lunarity. The fourth, Gulping Thief. The fifth, Negating Poison. Now, think about this. This sounds like a bad translation of antidote.
Yeah.
Look at Subduing Arrow. That's the dote. The Negating Poison is the antidote.
I'd agree with that.
That's 100%. Yeah. The sixth, the Filth Expeller. And the seventh, Stinking Lungs. What the hell? Fumigation. Yes. How clear you're seeing these texts are revealing the mysteries. Somebody in Greco-Bactria was selling the mysteries to these Chinese, to these
Oh, I
Mongols.
mean, well, I'm going to say, don't forget the Mongols and the Scythians live right next door to each other.
Yeah.
In fact, the
Well,
Mongols
the
kind of
Indians have
have the
their own
Scythian
version,
culture
too.
now. They pretty much took it over.
Yeah. So this is whoever they were. They got their hands on the mysteries from these Greeks living in Greco-Bactria. They sold them the mystery, and then what we're looking at is them trying to figure it out. What the fuck is going on with all this stuff? They're trying to figure out they're taking these substances. They're tripping balls. They're going down to the underworld. They're meeting spirits. They're doing fumigation. They're taking dotes and antidotes. It's called purple text. There's so many clues about what's going on here. And then it says, within your 2 ears will be the jade maidens, dressed in dark brocade and blocking the ear canals. They will hold torches in both of their hands. This is like Hecate and Persephone down in the underworld. After a long time, when all of these are in place, swallow saliva 7 times. Knock your teeth 7 times. It sounds like the PGM right now. And call the names of the 7 white souls. When you are finished, softly incant. With elemental pneumas 9 times wound, I control the perverse ferocity of the white souls. Celestial beasts guard the gates. Enchanting maidens hold the passes. They refine the white souls to passive compliance. Grant me peace and calm.
These sounds like the attendants of Artemis or the spirits who accompany Hecate, right? These virgin huntresses, the Furies. Wow.
I think that's the last one.
The way they're talking sounds like the Mithraic bit in the PGM as well, where he's asking like, please just keep me safe. This is scary. Keep me safe. And the breathing and gnashing the teeth. It seems very common, the gnashing teeth thing. You find it in Japan, you find it in China. It's in the Bible, isn't it? And then much gnashing.
Well, if you've seen someone tripping balls, they're gnashing their teeth. You're like,
yeah.
And also, I think it has to do with barbarous
Only
words
when I'm hungry.
right? And the being possessed, right? Like these people are going into those states where they're going to be doing the glossalia, and they're babbling, la 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 blah la la.
Yeah. Yeah,
if anyone wants to get this, by the way, I had to do there's so many pages that were like what you just saw. The whole book is like this. I only gave you like 1%. And if you want to, if anyone wants it, they just put this early Taoist scriptures right here.
Yes, I'm just getting into all this stuff. I've been a bit funny about getting into the Chinese mythological culture because it was just like I don't have the time. But then this came up, so I've delved into it a lot more, and I decided I will read that book, funnily enough, and that you've read it like that. I'll keep my eye open for it. I'm literally about to dive into it.
Ryan, do you want to finish your part of the presentation then?
If you like. Mine's quite dragon-related directly. I was just going to literally talk about Chinese and Japanese dragons.
But before that, Dion, did you have any comments or anything you wanted to say?
Oh, that was awesome. Loved it.
Yeah, really good.
Purple text,
Yeah,
baby.
Did you see that straight away? Did you see it straight away? As soon as you open, you're like, whoa, purple.
Purple
this is
text.
clearly
I couldn't believe
flowers.
it. I right away I knew something was special about it.
Well, in Asian culture, the dragon is a dominant theme in terms of what they call the religion or the spiritual path, what they call the emperor. The robe he wears, the chair he sits in is called the dragon throne. The gate he enters is called the dragon's gate. It's all about dragons in Asian culture. Even to this day, like I said, you'll go into a dragon house, Asian household, and you'll see little dragon iconography on the walls and on the doors and stuff.
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories. And please keep that map in mind that I showed you with the water that went back up towards the mountains in the wrong direction as they saw it. So there's the origin story of dragons in China and Japan. They are from the ocean. So again, you've got these water weather gods, and they assure the coming rains and such, and they make that cycle happen, that Dionysian kind of revivifying cycle. So they actually start off as koi carp, not dragons at all, as we know them. They're koi carp. And so the story goes that one day this particularly special carp looked up through the underside of the sea, and could see a shadow cast by an eagle that it couldn't understand. Very Plato's cave, this. An eagle cast its shadow, and it was like, oh, what's that? So the fish stuck its head out of the water. And it went, what the fuck's all this stuff? And he could see the sun, had no idea what it was. And he could see this mountain with a gorgeous waterfall coming down it. And he was like, I don't know what that is, but in a few days' time, I'm going to go up that. So every day, the fish would come out and check around to see what was going on, to see if it was clear and get used to his surroundings before he did try to go and swim up this stream backwards towards the top of this mountain. I think that map again. So as he's going up, the fish expends all its effort trying to get up there. There are some ogres pelting stones at him, trying to knock him off, and they do. And every day he regains his energy, very Promethean, and comes back and tries to swim up this mountain waterfall. And eventually he gets right near the top. And the Yellow Emperor, this dragon character, this eventual dragon character, this god character, patriarch, says, Koi Carp, that's so amazing. I've never seen anyone put so much effort into anything in my life. I will make you this dragon. What's a dragon? I don't know. You. So what happens is, so the myth goes. So can we see there's this energy? And I said before, the water's guard, a stream of energy. We kept talking about dragon lines. And I said almost the idea of a dragon is a packet of energy lined up to go in a direction in a powerful way. The waters, as they were, they saw to be able to hold something, you need a cup of some type, and that's the dragon, the form of the dragon. So when he gets to the top, the god makes the Koi Carp into this 9-part animal. It's the body of a snake, the underside, the belly of a clam for armor. It's got the horns of a stag, the eyes of an oni. I don't know what it's called in China. In Japan, it's an oni, which is like a troll, a big demonic troll guy. He's got relations to mushrooms as well. It might be fun to do one on Japan one day. The characters like the Tengu, they're actually not just clearly mushroom analogies. They're like clearly a mushroom as a sacrament analogy. And possibly from Babylon. Japanese characters, the old parts of some of that language actually shares a lot with ancient Babylonian. And these Tengu characters have got big noses like the Westerners. I digress. So this dragon also has claws of a tiger. You get me. And the face of a camel, a Bactrian camel.
Wow. Is that really what it says?
Yeah. It's a Bactrian camel. Yeah.
That's where camels come from, too.
Yeah.
Well, when I think of the camel, I just always think of the tarot, right? The sign of the priestess, and it's Gemel in Hebrew. Mm-hmm. You know, so you see
I don't think that.
What?
Yeah, I think that is totally applicable, but I don't agree with that particular thing that's done with the tarot with the Hebrew. I get rid of it. But that's the only thing. That's the only time me and Snappy have ever disagreed on anything.
You know, I just like that system. That doesn't mean anything, you know, and like, I think also fundamentally, I just want to say with all of this stuff, I think it's all pointing back to something beyond primordial, something intrinsically human, and something that is cyclical and reoccurring. So in many ways, like this originates in China as much as it influences Greece. And vice versa. You're seeing a cross-pollination of ideas that are coming from all these different places and from India as well. I don't want to play these games about original or oldest. I think that always gets beyond the point. I think this is probably far older than the written word, far older than maybe even humanity as we understand it. You know, it's probably...
Never mention it ever again.
You know, no, it's important that we understand and we look at these similarities, but it's not about picking who's first or who's better. These are silly questions to ask. It's about showing the interconnections, similarities, cool ideas, and how this kind of mystery is near universal, right? And I think it's far more primordial than anything, you know. And when I'm looking at the dragon, I just want to look at I'm looking for this shared imagery. We keep seeing it everywhere, right? And like, I wanted to talk today about how we see it in the Vedas, you know. And the Indian is some of the oldest in terms of a canon that we have.
Some of this Bronze Age Vedas right? Text. Yeah.
If you're going by the astrological dating, this is the oldest text that we have for the Indo-Aryan, right, that has been preserved. And I wanted to talk basically today looking at one figure with one dragon within the Vedas at the start of the Rig Veda, and just going to focus on that because it's such a huge topic. And then we're going to continue to do many more episodes, but today I want to focus on Vitra and Vala, mostly on Vitra. So Vitra is a giant snake who goes to battle against Indra. And this is kind of an ongoing theme throughout the hymns in the Rig Veda. And Indra is often called the dragon slayer or the dragon killer, and it's in relation to this being, this Vitra. And the thing with this particular snake being is they're sometimes a giant, they're sometimes a snake, but they're said to be the one that constricts and blocks the waters. And they are preventing the rain from coming down. And Indra, the thunder, the lightning god, slays the snake, and then the waters are able to come down. And he does it through the power of Soma, which brings this inspiration and strength that allows him to slay the serpent and to end that constriction and release the 7 rivers from the mountain. We'll see a bunch of this within the hymns as we go through here. So
that to me just sounded like alchemy. That was just pure alchemy. That just encapsulated everything I've ever learned about alchemy into a paragraph. That was amazing.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Well, you'll have to unpack it as we go here. So let's start with the hymn to Indra. This is hymn 32 in the Rig Veda. I will declare the many deeds of Indra, the first that he achieved, the thunder wielder. He slew the dragon, then disclosed the waters and cleft the channels of the mountain torrents. He slew the dragon lying on the mountain, his heavenly bolt of thunder to Vastar fashioned. Like lowing kine in rapids flow, descending the waters, gilded downwards to the ocean. Impetuous as a bull, he chose the Soma and in 3 sacred beakers drank the juices. Madhavan grasped the thunder for his weapon and smote to death this firstborn of the dragons. When Indra, thou had slain the dragon's firstborn and overcome the charms of the enchanters, then, giving life to sun and dawn in heaven, thou foundest not one foe to stand against thee. Indra, with his own great and deadly thunder, smote into pieces Vitra, worst of Vitras. So that's the name of this dragon, Vitra.
That was awesome.
He's a father of all of these various demons. It continues. As trunks of trees, what time the axe hath felled them, low on the earth, so lies the prostrate dragon. He, like a mad, weak warrior, challenged Indra, the great, impetuous, many-slaying hero. He, brooking not the clashing of the weapons, crushed Indra's foe, the shattered forts and falling. Footless and handless, still he challenged Indra, who smote him with his bolt between the shoulders. Emasculated, yet claiming manly vigor, thus Vitra lay, with shattered limbs dissevered. There as he lies like a bank bursting river, the waters, taking courage, flow above him. The dragon lies beneath the feet of torrents, which Vitra with his greatness had encompassed. Then humbled was the strength of Vitra's mother. Indra hath cast his deadly bolt against her. The mother was above. The son was under like a cow. Beside her calf lay Danu. Rolled in the midst of never-ceasing currents, flowing without a rest ever onward, the water bare off Vitra's nameless body. The foe of Indra sank during darkness. Guarded by Ahi, stood the thralls of Dasas. The waters stayed like kine held by the robber. But he, when he had smitten Vitra, opened the cave wherein the floods had been imprisoned. A horse's tail wast thou when he, O Indra, smote on thy boat, thou god without a second. Thou hast won back the kine, has won the Soma. Thou hast let loose to flow the 7 rivers. Nothing availed him lightning, nothing thunder, hailstorm, or mist, for which had spread around him. When Indra and the dragon strove in battle, Magavan gained the victory forever. Whom sawest thou to avenge the dragon Indra, that fear possessed by thy heart when thou hadst slain him? All right, so that's one last line here. That like a hawk affrighted through the regions thou crossed, 99 flowing rivers. Indra is king of all that moves and moves not, of creatures tame and horned, the thunder wielder. Over all living men, he rules as sovereign, containing all as spokes within the felly. So what do you guys think of that?
It mirrors the Pulaskian creation myth of Zos slaying the dragon. I don't know if you ever read Robert, what's his name again? Robert
Graves' version.
Robert Graves, yeah. He talks about Zos slaying the dragon and then separating 2 waters.
Yeah.
Marduk Tiamat as well, the original Babylonian. Well, you
right.
say original. How old is that myth? Well, actually, we kind of know somewhat. It comes from South Africa originally.
Think so?
Well, yeah, almost certainly, yeah. It's this serpent god in the waters thing. Is the same myth everywhere. It seems to be.
It's also Indo-European too. It might be from there.
Yeah. It just spreads about before, way before there was any writing. We're talking probably early Stone Age kind of thing.
I would say late Stone Age.
It could be like a Cro-Magnon thing.
Exactly. It could even predate modern humans, right? We have those Venus figurines that that may not even be made by people, right? Like as we understand people, these are still humans in our lineage, but these are before what we would recognize as human beings.
This area we're talking about now, particularly at the time, you got to remember that Europeans are kind of Cro-Magnon with a bit of Neanderthal in there. It's the other way around for the Chinese race, for that area. That it's a very recent meeting of these 2 races, so they will have a lot to share and a lot to talk about. Obviously, they've been interbreeding for hundreds of thousands of years, somewhat. But as these 2 distinctive phenotypes, I think that's a word for plants. But they'll have a lot to share, and you see a lot of this cross-cultural pollination. I see a lot of it. This stuff we're discussing today in Taoism, coming from Persia, because a lot of the earliest words used in Taoism are the same as Persian words. Including the word for magician in China, the earliest word is something like magoi or something like that, like magoi.
It's also interesting because we have those distinct paths, the left hand and the right hand path, and this is represented between, you have the Median path where you do not slay the dragon, instead you tame the dragon and you ride the dragon on your chariot. Right? You see this within the Chinese as well, right? They're not slaying their dragons most of the time.
Or the dragon conquers on the other side.
Right?
Well,
exactly.
The Chinese dragon is more evolved anyway. It's to us, it would be that dragon that we have, but being ridden, as you just said, Snappy, they don't have the bad dragon, really. They're certainly powerful and aggressive, and the very Aries, they got that Mars power to them. They are a yang element, a masculine fiery temperament, but a water animal. They guard the waters. It's a strange. It's like we said. It's like a charge. It's that lightning coming down, and then it's the charge that's in the mushroom that is left in the earth by the lightning.
a lot of this stuff also is really reflective of a lot of these wars and violent moving of peoples that happens. Like, I didn't include it, but when I was looking through the Rig Veda, right, at this, there is this. Some scholars talk about how that the snakes are representative, or the serpents and the nagas are representative of the original people, the indigenous people in this area, which were then coming into conflict with these arriving horse peoples, right? These and what you see though in the Rig Veda for certain, there's a couple different genocides. There is extreme violence. There's one where they talk about how Ram kills all these people and it makes 7 lakes of blood. And then those lakes of blood later go into the churning of the ocean of milk. And it also has to do with all the monsters, the descendants of Vitras, all get churned up into the Amrit to fuel the Amrit. So there's also all of this war, violent iconography, again, making me think of like what Dion was showing with the field of Ares, and when we were talking about the Spartoi, and also you see the same field of Ares with the Argonautica talks about this with Medea, when she and Jason are going to get the fleece, they have to cross the fields of Ares.
I think for anybody, the feel, in your everyday life, as us rather than these mythical characters, the field of Ares is any time that you are on the battlefield, as it were, not necessarily in conflict, but like any time that every time you're in conflict on any level, if it's just you met your mum and she wanted the skimmed milk and you want the heavy cream milk, do you know what I mean? It's any time that you're going to tussle. That's what Mars is. So yeah, because it's good to do that because it sharpens your sword. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you engaging in life, which is what Mars is bidding you to do. Engage in life
and to transform. Right? It's that force that forces adaptation. Right? It's that violence that causes the churning of the ocean. Right? Like you need that violence in order to produce that Amrit. Right? It's a painful part of this kind of reality that we're all bound up in,
It's that polarization again, isn't it? Don't those two sets of deities kind of like polarize themselves in mythology as they cross from from over there to Persia? I think they're literally the names.
The Devas and the Ashuras.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I wanted to show a couple more examples from the Rig Veda talking about Vitra. And so this comes from another hymn. It says, "Thou hast unclosed the prisons of the waters. Thou hast in the mountains seized the treasure, rich in gifts. When thou hadst slain with might the dragon Vitra, thou, Indra, did raise the sun in heaven for all to see." The slaying of the dragon causes the sun to rise. It's a slaying of the night. It causes this solar cycle. It's like the solar cycle displacing the lunar cycle, a flipping of the poles again. So here's another one. Then heaven himself, the mighty, at that dragon's roar reeled back in terror when Indra, thy thunderbolt, in the wild joy of Soma, had struck off with might the head of Vitra, the tyrant of the earth and heaven. The tyrant of the earth, right? So the dragon is also this tyrannical king. This is another constant theme we keep seeing, right? And then this is a new energy that's coming to displace that old tyrant and to bring in a new golden age, right?
That green man again.
So this is another really cool hymn I wanted to read. It's to Indra. It says, "He who, just born, chief god of lofty spirit, by power and might became the god's protector, before whose breath through greatness of his valor the 2 worlds trembled. He, O men, is Indra. he who fixed fast and firm the earth that staggered, and set at rest the agitated mountains, who measured out the air's wide middle region, and gave the heaven support. He, men, is Indra, who slew the dragon, freed the 7 rivers, and drove the kine forth from the cave of Vala, begat the fire between 2 stones. The cave of Vala, the Vala is another demon dragon, the twin of Vitra. Between 2 stones, the spoiler in warrior's battle, he, O men, is Indra, by whom this universe was made to tremble, who chased away the humbled brood of demons, who like a gambler, gathering his winnings, seized the foe's riches. He, O men, is Indra, of whom the terrible they ask, where is he? O verily they say of him, he is not. He sweeps away like birds the foe's possessions. Have faith in him, for he, O men, is Indra, stirrer to action of the poor and lowly of priests, of suppliant who sing his praises, who fair-faced favors him who presses Soma with stones made ready. He, O men, is Indra, he under whose supreme control are all our horses, all chariots, and the village cattle. He who gave being to the sun and morning, who leads the waters. He who men is Indra, to whom 2 armies cry, and close encounters with enemies, the stronger and the weaker, whom to invoke upon 1 chariot mounted, each for himself. He, ye men, is Indra, without whose help our poor never conquer, whom battling they invoke to give them succor. He of whom all this world is but the copy, who shakes things moveless. He, O men, is Indra, he who hath smitten ere they knew their danger with his hurled weapon many grievous sinners, who pardons not his boldness, who provokes him, who slays the dastardly. He, O men, is Indra, he who discovered in the 40th autumn Sambara as he dwelt among the mountains, who slew the dragon, putting forth his vigor, the demon lying there. He, men, is Indra, who with 7 guiding reins, the bull, the mighty, set free the 7 great floods to flow at pleasure. So we have that Dionysian sacrificial bull that is slain. The mighty then is set free, the 7 great floods, right? Those 7 chakras, who thunder armed rent Runia in pieces. Now you're having the demon Runia rent and ripped apart. This is another synonym for Vitra. This time he's that primordial demon being literally divided.
It's also a bull slaying a dragon. The bull.
Right.
Well, it's a lot of these characters seem to be Orion most of the time. Now, obviously, Taurus is next to Orion, but also above these, you get the twins of Gemini, but then suddenly it's Draco, the dragon. So I'm wondering, because obviously, you know, these myths, there's like a giving and taking all the time. It's like they're coming up with the myths. The stars are in certain formats above them. They can fit so many different shapes according to the imagination. I mean, how many constellations look nothing like the thing they're supposed to be? But there's definitely they intended to put this stuff up there because it was really important to them, and that they are construing the knowledge to fit the analogy above, and then reflecting it back down again, and reconstruing it and refining it, and you know, because you can see it's just the same stuff told over and over and over again with different cultural contexts and maybe a slightly different astronomy, depending on that processional, you know.
Absolutely.
Because Gilgamesh slays the bull, you know.
Absolutely.
That's when that starts.
Right? And Mitra, you have, okay, in the Vedas, you even have a character named Mithras, you know?
Yeah.
All of this stuff is so interconnected, and you're seeing so much cross-cultural pollination as well. Like, it's wild to see. And I wanted to show you guys this because this was the oldest image that I could find of Indra. And here you have him with the solar crown, okay? That's the eye is also the sun, and he's holding up the 2 demons. One demon is Vitra, one is Vala, the 2 dragons, and he's standing upon his elephant. Okay. But when I saw this image, it immediately made me think of two other very similar images that I'm familiar with. This comes to us from Harappa. This is one of the Harappan seals. And this is called the Master of Beasts. And you see this guy here holding two dragons on either side, or two lions or tigers potentially, right? But it's two wild beasts being held, very, very similar. And this is one of these sigils that we've seen repeated often. And you brought up Gilgamesh, because I thought I've seen this image again.
Master of Animals.
The Master of Animals, right? From holding up the two wild beasts. Okay. You know, the similarities are so striking. And then if we go again, remember, this is taking us back to that dragon phylacteries. This is Horus, the child, Harpocrates, holding snakes, scorpions, and tigers and lions, right? In his hands. And this is to protect you from these beasts, right?
Yeah.
And this is an image again, right? We see the child, Hercules, with the twin snakes. And then we have, this is an image of Sabazios with the snake in the tree, in the fruit.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And now we're getting back into Indra. I wanted to show the similarities with Indra. He always has his magic club, you know. It's not really a club. It's like this special type of thing here. You'll see, but it's used as it's both used for pressing the soma and for drawing the lightning. And it's
the
like this
Dorje.
magic wand. What?
The Dorje, is it called? I've never heard it pronounced Dorje.
I'm trying to remember what it's called now.
Dorje. Yeah, I'm sure of that. Yeah,
that's what
it's clearly a mushroom symbol. It's lightning and mushroom symbol as far as I can see. I never thought about it as a masticating device. That's really interesting.
Right, yeah. Because he's constantly pressing the soma and drinking the soma. That's like
it's Thor's hammer. Oh shit.
You know,
I wonder if they're masticating the mushrooms with Thor's hammer being a clear. I've never met a clearer mushroom symbol in all of the occult and historical mythological works I've run into.
Vajra.
It's so obvious.
The Vajra story. Sorry to everyone. The Vajra is Thunderbolt.
Yeah. Dorje is the Tibetan word for it's Dorje.
You know that Elon Musk has one of those in his house. He took a picture of it and shared it. It's like a golden.
This actual statue.
No, it's the golden staff. He has one of those.
Wow!
I've got one. I've got a little.
But yeah, so that was my little presentation on Indra slaying Vitra and how old this goes back in the Rig Veda. You know, but there's a ton of this kind of serpent stuff throughout the Indian, and it's like overwhelming. You know, I found this entire next time we come back to do more Dragon Tongue, I want to get into. I found a bunch of these tantric spell manuals.
Look at this. Look at this image I got. This is from X. Elon Musk shared this. My bedside table, and look at there it is.
Yeah.
He has a Vajra. Yeah, Tibetan.
What a weirdo. Wonder what he's doing with that. Who knows? Probably thinks he's king of the universe.
I think next time, if we're mixing it up next time a little bit, I've had a feeling I want to show Neil something. I want to show Neil the formula of Yod He Vav He, that Jehovah Yahweh name.
We will definitely
bring that next time.
We'll definitely do that, but we have something special planned. I had already told you about this, Neil, but our good friend Andrew Oldboy is going to be joining us.
Nice.
For the next week. Awesome. We're going to be diving into, we're going to be looking at specifically this figure of Larissa and the Pelasgians and its connection to Rome, connecting to that mother of Lares. Because when I was looking into a lot of this daimonic stuff, I kept coming up to this crossroad mother of spirits type imagery, and that was bringing me to the Pelasgian. And Oldboy just dove right into their most recent stuff. Is all about Pelasgian creation myth, and they were doing some additional research last I spoke, looking into Larissa specifically. So
Nice.
this should be interesting in the Pelagian roots of Rome.
I'll opt out of that then, because I'm sure my fellow Northerner has a lot more to say on anything than I might. I'll just get in the way, but
you're free
I might
to
pop in at the end. Yeah, I'll pop in at the end. That's what I'll do, and have a little chat.
come by whenever.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. But I'm sure you guys will have more fun doing that. Not that I'm not very interested. Those Plaskians are really cool.
They are, for sure.
It's going to get wild. And I'm excited to dive deep into it and to give Old Boy a shout out and to really, because the new content that he's been producing is A+. Everyone go check it out.
For sure.
Just search Old Boy on YouTube. And, but yeah, any comments about the Vedas and Vitra in this slaying of the serpent that clogs the waters and the releasing of the 7 rivers?
I just want to say real quick that it surprises me how much in common the Eastern traditions have with the Western traditions.
Yeah.
Even though they have their vast differences, obviously, we all know those, but there's so much in common too.
I think it's because the base mysticism for it is still pole star stuff. It's still the Chinese symbol for magic is like the swastika. Very similar. It's all getting at this second pole. Mithraism, that Roman Mithraism, is almost a clear analogy for this same secret mysticism, which is this pole star stuff. You get it in Judaism in that Hecalot, that chariot mysticism. Basically, you'll see a chariot or poles or like Solomon's temple. That's the secret behind all the religions and what seems like to be this before Stone Age religion is this dual pole, this dual axis thing.
Interesting.
Because Saturn lives at the top of the North Pole, and he's the Stone Age god.
Yeah.
Whenever look into the Taoists, they're doing the same thing. They'll sit there in meditation, they straighten themselves up like the Axis Mundi, and they point themselves at the Big Dipper or the Pole Star. That's what they're doing. They're all doing it and taking drugs. Soma, all of them. Even when they say they don't.
Any final words there, Neil? What you got to say?
No, I got to take my dog out soon, but this has been great.
All right, everyone. Well, this was so much fun. Make sure to go follow Neil, Gnostic Informant, and Ryan71111. And we'll see you guys next week when we dig into the Pelagian with Dion and Old Boy as well. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. We're the Occult Explorers. Take care.